Lovely.
Right. Then officially, I'll say good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are we?
Good morning.
Welcome to this Parish Online session. Great to have you here. I'm just struggling to remember how to do my training. So it's been since November, I think we did the last one. Can't remember, but it feels like a long time ago. Anything pre-Christmas is a long time ago. For this session today, we're going to be having the morning session where we're going to go through the basics. This is going to get you up to scratch with the core understanding of the software and how you can carry out some common tasks using it. We're not going to go into specific examples or use cases, but I'm going to show you the functionality so that you can then apply that functionality, those skills, to whatever you're doing in your council. So we'll go through the common stuff. It'll be death by PowerPoint to start off with, I'm afraid, but that's just so we can all get up to scratch with the terminology and things, and then we'll go into a practical session. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A. Olivia is on hand with a sore throat to help cover the chat. So if there are things that crop up, do stick them in the chat. Olivia will either be able to cover them by messaging you back into the group. Don't send them directly, send them to everyone so everyone can see the questions being asked. If they're particularly pertinent, then Olivia will interrupt me and we will change the session as we go. But if it's stuff that can wait to the Q&A at the end, or Olivia can just answer as we go if it's already been covered, but we'll do it that way. I don't mind heckling, so feel free to unmute and heckle if it's really, really urgent, and Olivia can do the same as well. Because it's really good to make this interactive and not just a bore fest where I'm talking at you. So we do want to get some feedback from you as we go. Then in the afternoon session, we're going to cover some more advanced tasks. So again, looking at the functionality rather than the use cases. But in that session, that can be much more interactive because I'm going to go through fewer things. And in that session, we can apply some use cases to it. So you can go, well, if you've got working on cycle routes or whatever, for example, then we can apply some of the examples to that. Now we've got 1 till 2:30, and I deliberately under content that afternoon session because questions come up and we can look at particular examples from what you're doing as well, rather than, again, me just reading it off. So again, if you've got real examples that you want to get on with using the software, then we can use that afternoon session to explore those. And I'm sure they'll be useful to others to see as well. If you see me looking over here, it's because I'm actually looking at you. That's the sort of grid of you. So I'm not just ignoring you, but the screen I'm looking at is the PowerPoint screen, just in case you think I'm getting bored. Okay. So this session today is provided as a member benefit for WALC members. So thank you to Alison for setting all this up for us, and Olivia for getting it all rigged up. We love doing these sessions. It's great to get a bit of interactive sessions with you rather than us putting videos on YouTube and then hoping that people watch them. It's great to actually get some interactive content here. And what I'll do is start off with a little bit conversely. Actually, can I just take a bit of a poll? So feel free to either shout out or hands up. Who currently subscribes to and uses Parish Online? Lydia, 1, 2, 3. It's like 3. Okay, so the rest of you, I'm assuming, then are new to Parish Online. Okay, cool. All right, that's good. This morning session won't be wasted then. So for you, have you already used Parish Online? This will be a good confirmation of the work you're already doing, and hopefully you'll pick up some new tips and tricks from it. For the newbies, then this is your introduction to Parish Online, and this will get you a really good grounding for going away and actually using it yourself. So before I start out, I'm going to do the sales pitch for it, but this is just so that you can understand how to sign up to it yourself and how it all works. So Parish Online is a subscription service that allows Olivia and myself and the software development team to continue offering the software. And we base the subscription price on the size of the council by population. So it can be anything from £30 all the way up to £1,500 a year for a subscription. And so we grade that to try and match the affordability of each size of council, and the average being around £95 a year. And that does obviously, that varies as population things change and whatever. If you think, oh crikey, that's really cheap, I can go for it, great. If you think, oh crikey, that's really expensive, then have a look at the business case thing. You can see where we can actually say you're actually saving money using the software. But also, if you see that your price is completely restrictive for you, drop us an email, because we can go and review it and see whether it's actually correct and to the right population and all that kind of jazz. So don't be afraid to get in touch. Also, for new subscribers, and don't worry, existing subscribers, you're already on great deals. New subscribers can use this discount code to get 20% off your subscription. And once you apply that code, that will apply for your first year of subscription and your following, providing you carry on with your subscription. So that's a great code to add onto your account. Don't worry if you forget, up until April, then we can add it on for you as well. But yeah, do go and take that up. You can even put that code in when you're just taking out a trial. So you can trial the software for a month for free, no obligation to sign up. But if you put that code in, then if you do decide to subscribe at the end, then it takes that code and applies that discount for you. Okay. There is another way of getting Parish Online, and that's to not pay for it. If you, which sounds great, BHIB Council's Insurance offer Parish Online as part of their policy. So they're currently getting quick because they're looking at changing this, I think. But if you take on one of their new 3-year policies, then they will give you Parish Online funded for those 3 years. So you pay absolutely nothing for your Parish Online subscription, and you hopefully get a good insurance deal. So go and check that out first yourself. I'm not an insurance salesman. You do your research on that. But that's an offer that's available to mean that we can get our money from an insurance company instead of you directly, which just feels a little bit better. Okay, so that's how you can subscribe to Parish Online. Going through the process on our website, I'm just going to talk you through this because there is some terminology. So you'll end up with this sign-up form, and just start typing in the name of your parish. It will give you a list. Yes, you can use this to look up rood words of all the rood parishes in the country. Go for it. It's waste 5 minutes. But once you found yours, then you click on it and it clicks you through to these two panels. You can subscribe straight away if you're confident you want to take it on, but you can also take advantage of that 30-day free trial as well. So push the subscription on a bit. So when you click that, it will give you your review of how much your subscription is. That's where you put your discount code in and apply it, and it will make the change there. And then carry on from there. It will ask you to put in your council details, your details, passwords, a few other things, and off you go. There are 2 things that will trip you up, because in the mapping industry, we love acronyms, we love terminology that no one else understands. And unfortunately, there are 2 in that sign-up form. One is the PSGA. So it'll ask you for a PSGA license number, and you go, well, what is that? This is a centrally funded scheme by Ordnance Survey and central government to allow you to have access to the more up-to-date, higher resolution, higher detailed mapping for the whole country, rather than the screenshot you're seeing on your page now. So it will mean instead of getting this sort of map view, you'll get this map view. So back in the olden days, you would have to pay for this mapping yourself as a parish council, and then they realized that was a terrible idea, so they centrally fund it. So you just need to go to Ordnance Survey's website. We've got some links on our pages, and Olivia, I'm sure you can throw some into the chat. Register for that license number, and then you can apply it to your Parish Online account, and then we'll automatically add that data into your account. It does take a few days to do because Ordnance Survey aren't as fast as us, but you can just put, I don't have it for now. And then when you do get it, you can add it to your Parish Online account later, because your Parish Online account will keep bugging you every time you log in going, have you got that license code yet? So if you can get that code, then off you go. There is a lookup on the PSGA website that tells you whether your council has already got a code. So that's worth looking at as well before you start, because then you have to apply for the process again. And if that's the case, if you are on there and you don't know what it is, ask us, drop us a support email, because we have a database of them that we might be able to apply. It's a silly mechanism, but that's the way they have told us we have to do it. Okay, so that's the important one. There is another one, which will be on the next section of that sign-up form, and it's the APGB. Now, that's the aerial photography for Great Britain. So this is the same sort of license, but this is for aerial photography instead. And if you've added your PSGA license in there, we've actually got a little mechanism behind the scenes that can register on your behalf. So if you've got the PSGA number, then it'll say, oh, do you want APGB as well? And you go, yes, fine. And then it'll do it automatically. That's all instant. But again, it means you get from this resolution of data to this resolution. So much more detailed, much more up to date. Those two licenses are both free. It's called free at the point of use. It's free for you. Central government pay for it, but as a council, you won't be obliged to pay anything or do anything. It's just the license that you can get to access that data. Okay, right. That's hopefully the dull bit out of the way. This is only going to get better now. Let's start talking about Parish Online. So Parish Online is a self-service mapping portal. So we've created this to help you get access to all the digital mapping data that you need for your council business. Now, all of that aerial photography and Ordnance Survey mapping that we were just talking about is one really good example of that. That is terabytes, so thousands of gigabytes of data that we store on behalf of all parish councils in the country, so that when you log into Parish Online, the most up-to-date mapping is there on your screen and you don't have to worry about it. There is value in Parish Online in just that statement alone. We know because it's a right pain doing all of that, and all the data comes in really weird formats, and it's horrible and it's huge. And so we do that all on your behalf. So when you log into Parish Online, you've got access to current mapping data. There's no software to install. That's something we wanted to really make sure was part of our proposition. We didn't want to have to install things on individual computers, again, because the data is huge. So everything happens in the web browser. So when you log into Parish Online, it's calling our server for the information you need on the go. We keep all that secure and encrypted on our server, and to pay for all the servers and updates and things, we do that on an affordable subscription service, as I mentioned before. So it's not just the data that we host for you, it's your data as well. So you can add information into your Parish Online account that you and your colleagues can share, and whether you're building up draft plans or researching something or doing some Sherlock Holmes work, you can use Parish Online for it. Before we get bogged down in the software as well, as I go through, this might get overwhelming. And some parishes have gone, well, that was a great session. Thanks, Chris. I know. But I just can't get my head around that. That was too much information. I'm not going to be able to do it myself. As soon as I log into it, how am I going to know what to start? How am I going to know how to get started? Well, we're here for you. Olivia and myself are here to help you out. Drop us an email saying, just where do I start? I'm trying to do this. What do I do? We will absolutely help you with those things. So drop us an email if you get stuck. Subscribe to our newsletter, which Olivia does every month, which shows where data's been updated and what other parishes are using it for and how the software's improved. We've got a knowledge base with step-by-step guides and video tutorials for how to do the things that I'm going to show you today. And we've got user groups and training providers if you need that extra help as well. So those training providers for kind of one-to-one sessions, and that's in our partner section. But yes, we are here. Don't suffer in silence. You use your Parish Online subscription, but you also use the support. It comes through to myself and Olivia, and we help you out. So the real question is, why use maps in the first place? And I can feel I've got a cold coming on. I've got a sore throat coming on as well. This is going to be a fun session. Have I got any strepsils knocking around? The main proposition of why you use maps is this example. So if we take your things that you own in your parish council, and it might be a set of benches, and you might have this in a spreadsheet stored on your computer. It might be on a scrap of paper, or it might just be in your head. All valid forms of storage. But our proposition to you is that that information is better on a map. Why is it better on a map? Well, firstly, in the case of benches, I can see the distribution of my benches. I can see whether they're placed correctly. I can see whether they're in the right, good, suitable position, and I can account for them really well. It's also much more obvious if there's one missing in this database than there is on this database. So I would say that you can use Parish Online as a mapping system to store your documents. Essentially, you can convert a spreadsheet document into a map and use it as a map instead. Now, it's not the case that when you plot these points on the map that you lose all the extra information stored within this spreadsheet. You can retain that. So you can assign or associate information with each of these points. So these are intelligent maps. There's information within each one of these points for you to click on and refer to. So everything's got a place. A map can help you understand what's going on in your area, how your things are distributed, where your stuff is, and how your parish looks. So that's that's our proposition to you is why you use maps. Thanks for the session. Any questions? No, I'm joking. We'll carry on. But that is the crux of it, is converting your information into a map that's shareable to the whole council. Now, there are lots of different use cases of this. Benches, plotting the location of your assets is just one example, but there's lots of different uses of Parish Online. All of these things here have an element of location to them. So we feel that you could use, they could all benefit from a map. Let's take contracts management, for example. We have many parishes who draw out the grass boundaries of where they need grass cutting done. They put in who the contractor is for it. They put in how much it cost last time. And Parish Online, as a piece of software, calculates the area exactly. And so that when you go to quote the next time round, you've got an exact area to quote. You can even send the contractor a map to say, I want all this stuff done, give me a quote. And you'll probably get better quotes from that. And we've seen from other parishes that they do, far beyond the cost of the Parish Online subscription. So again, finding another return on investment for that software. But yeah, there's lots of, this is just 9 uses here, but there are lots of different uses of Parish Online. The software is kind of free for all. You can start using it for whatever you like, whatever parish business you're doing, you can use the software for it. So we don't restrict you to particular applications. So you can use it for some weird and wonderful things. Do let us know what you're using it for, because we'd love to write up a case study about it as well. Okay, so you can end up with your permanent regularly maintained record of your parish. You can reduce your reliance on paper copies. That's a really good transition between clerks as well. And it gives you visibility of those records to the whole council. So it's transparency within your organization, and the information is secure. The information doesn't leave to someone who retires and goes to live in New Zealand. It stays with you in the council. And that reliance on paper copies was really important, especially during lockdown 1, where everyone went, oh, right, okay, the paper maps that we've got with the TPOs written on them is in the office and we're not allowed to go there. That's a bit of a problem. So the parishes who are already using Parish Online transitioned really easily to that home working. So things you would actually do in Parish Online. So these are some screenshots. So you can draw out areas on the map and record information about them. So I've given you an example with a bench where you put a point on the map and then draw the information about it. You can do that for areas and for lines as well. So it's there to create your own maps, as well as the ones that are already in there. And you can also print those maps. So when we say print, we mean print to a PDF file. So it's still a digital file and it's on your computer. You can then email that, put it on your website, print it off physically, or just keep it stored on your computer. You're allowed to do that with your Parish Online and mapping licenses. And one of the things that we do for the money, as it were, is we maintain all of these sources of data, and there's some that aren't on here as well. So we typically have 250 layers of information that we pull in from different sources that we know that other parishes use on a day-to-day basis for their work. So we talked about the Ordnance Survey data, but we've got land registry polygons, we've got flooding data, we've got cycle and transport data, we've got historic, we've got listed buildings. Lots of information here that we know that parishes find useful for their daily work, and it's there when you log in. You don't have to go and source that information. We keep it up to date for you, and we, as we add new data sets, they're automatically in Parish Online for you. So as we get, I'm getting a bit of feedback. That's really good to have. And if you've got any suggestions of data sets you would like in Parish Online, then let us know, drop us an email and we'll put them onto the list. But yeah, or just let us know how you're using them, because that's really good feedback as well. In some areas, we also get local authority information directly from them. So information that we can't get open through a national body, things like tree preservation orders, conservation areas, SHLA sites, settlement boundaries, their assets. There's lots of information that the district holds that they, through their licenses, can easily give to you. And so if you say to your districts, hey, give Parish Online access to these data sets on a district-wide basis, we can trickle all of that information down to the relevant parishes, those relevant Parish Online accounts. And that means we can do it once. We can get those TPOs once from a district and it's shared to all parishes. So this is really tricky because for us as a commercial company, it's a case of lobbying them, but we need some weight of the actual customers behind it as well. So if you can go and, I'm not going to say bully, but aggressively lobby them to share that information, then that's really helpful for you and for other parishes in your area. And it's something that parish districts are open to doing. We have, I don't know the number, a lot of local authorities already sharing data, including Rugby. And so it is possible to do, it's easy to do. So we're just trying to enhance that. That's one of our little pet projects, but we do need your help for that. Just a note on NAUC and the regional ALCs. We believe that Parish Online is aligned to a lot of the forward planning, the forward plan that NAUC has put forward in engaging on equal terms. The main thing out of this, I'd say, is better evidence. as a local council, you may be ignored or dismissed as a body because you are just the parish council. I would say tool up with Parish Online, with all the mapping, with the evidence, so that when you go and present your arguments to district, to the public, to whoever, you can support those actions and decisions with evidence, real evidence, official mapping data. That presents you as, just comes across better, because you can say, well, instead of going, I think, you can go, well, I know, because here's the information. And we've seen that work in lots of parishes where they're trying to make changes in the local area and going up to the district. Because the district all have this mapping data as well. So they might feel they've got one over on you. Well, if you've got the same data as them, and sometimes even better data, then that puts you in a really good position. The software we've seen used by volunteers to the council as well, and that's helped attract young and diverse people to the council. It can be a game, the software. Go and add all the benches into Parish Online. It's great fun. Some people like that. I do. And so it has attracted more people to get involved in the council. And in the end, if you've got better evidence, you can draw out better plans and publish that plans with the public, then you have better engagement with your own community, your residents as well. So yeah, the parishes who use Parish Online really do benefit from having that information source. Okay, I'm going to fly through a few use cases from parishes who have used Parish Online. So one is in neighbourhood planning. This is a big thing. We've probably got 450 parishes who have either done or are doing a neighbourhood plan using Parish Online. Now, obviously, you don't do the whole neighbourhood plan in Parish Online, but you can produce the maps that become appendices or figures for your neighbourhood plan, because that really, a picture paints 1,000 words there, and you can really bring that neighbourhood plan to life. It also improves the commenting when it comes to consultation phase. You don't get people saying, oh, well, I don't like this because it's there. And you go, well, it's not there. Here's a map explaining where everything is. Okay, now you get better comments from it. Faversham Town Council, as an example, have used this. They used it to produce site and block plans for actual planning applications that we were doing as part of a project. They were using the data extract tool to extract addresses that they were going to then use as for mail shots, so physical mailing. So you can extract all the addresses out from a particular area and send that out for consultation. And they were sharing the maps with the public and internally in meetings surrounding the changing to some Schlar sites. So it became an interactive tool for consultation, for planning, and yeah, really helped them in their neighbourhood planning process. What it looks in real life, well, in the end, in Parish Online, everything looks like a map, but this is the thing that they were actually doing with it. So they were drawing things out like their local gap. Now, that's a concept that some people might understand, but this particular parish is right next to Basingstoke. So you can see a big urban area. And so they have this local gap which protects them from bleed from the main town council and the M3. So they've drawn that out on the map, and that tells everyone where that local gap is and the kind of buffer zone that they're protecting from their own village. And so that just makes it obvious. They can say, well, why aren't we going to put loads of houses here? Well, because we're trying to segregate from the main town. So just a really simple example there. It's just one shape that we've drawn onto the map that communicates exactly what's going on in the area. They've then built it up. They've added new layers of information. Now you're going to hear me say the word layer a lot today. So they have different layers, which could be just themes of information. And LGS, their local green spaces. So they drew out where all their green spaces were, and they numbered them, so then they can refer to them in the neighbourhood plan document. And then they were building up other things. So whether it's ancient woodland, these big triangles of view sheds of where they want protected views, and various other things that I don't know what they've put in here, but it helped them build up that map that was used as reference in their neighbourhood plan. So that's neighbourhood planning. The next one is asset management, back to benches again. And Chelsea Town Council used it to plot all of their assets. They're a seaside parish or a town. And so they plotted all the benches down here and put on even who they are in memoriam to and when they were last maintained, painted, whatever. And the grounds team do the walk down here, use Parish Online on their phone and make changes as they need to. They can upload photos to a particular item as well. So if they've got a physical record stored to that point of what the bench looked like, and then maybe if it's been vandalized or something, they can have a picture of that to show evidence of that and date of it, which kind of links back to the insurance thing we were talking about earlier. But yeah, they use that they use Parish Online on a daily basis for their asset management because they have such a large number of assets. We also have parishes who use Parish Online very rarely. They pay for their subscription every year. They log into it maybe 4 times a year. And we poll those people. We go, well, why are you not using the software? And they go, well, it's perfect. It's invaluable. It's a data store that I know I can go back to, make the changes I need to every few months, and then know it's there and go back to it. So you don't have to use Parish Online every day to get the value from it. You can have it there as a repository of that data, knowing that it's there, safe and secure. Okay. Here's an example of one of these assets. So, I mean, this is in a different area. They plotted a speed camera. They put in information on when it was installed, what the replacement value is, inspection dates. We've pre-formatted all of this for you. So when you click a CCTV camera or a speed camera on the map, on the left-hand side of the software, it will prompt you for all the things that you could type in about it. So that's really easy to do. And then they put in a picture of it as well. Another case study in winter preparedness. So this is a parish council just north of Basingstoke, and they plotted where all their grip bins were. And then they use this to, when they go out and do the little survey to check that they're all topped up. The ones that aren't topped up, they mark up in the software, and then they can extract a spreadsheet from Parish Online to then send to the district or the county to go and get them sorted. So they can give a really easy, they can give them a map, and they can give them a list record of the ones that need sorting. And that really helps them as they get into the winter season. So yeah, again, a nice seasonal task. Doesn't take them very long to do, but that layer just sits there until maybe September, where they come around to do it, and then they get it done, and that's done for the year. Another example here is in cemetery management. Now, we didn't design Parish Online as a cemetery management tool, but parishes use it as one. We can take these plot information areas from other software like Pair Technology, load it into your account, and then you can make changes as you need to. A bit perversely, cemetery plots in our mind are identical to allotment plots. It's exactly the same kind of methodology. You've got an area, you've got some information stored within it, and that could be a tenant or a resident. But you know what I mean. Everything you can do here is you can have these polygons to store information about them. So they use this to keep an up-to-date record of their cemetery information. Again, it's not a bespoke designed cemetery management tool, but it does the work that they want to. And Hook were able to offset the cost of their dedicated cemetery management tool by using Parish Online for it instead. There's a few other examples here. So for assessing planning applications, so when planning applications come up in your area, talking about evidence again, you can go and switch on lots of constraints that are available. This looks like a cartoony thing, but this is actually real data. You can turn on the flood risk, sites of special scientific interest, ancient woodland, whatever other constraints you think should be applicable in that area. And you can then provide a better assessment of that application and your view of it. In this example, this is a fake example, but in the case of something going here, then it's not within any of these areas, but it's really close to this ancient woodland. Do you need to take that into account? So understanding the geography of an application. We've also got some tools now, as I mentioned earlier, where you can create your own planning application maps. So if you are opening up street areas to allow frontage for cafes or whatever it is, and you've or you even own Village Hall, then you can produce planning application maps in Parish Online. Whereas normally you'd go to another website and you would pay 15 quid for them. You don't have to do that because you've got Parish Online and you've got the license to the mapping already. When you go and pay your 15 quid to the planning application websites, you're paying for the data, okay, and a bit of the service, but you already have a license to the data. So providing this is a parish council application, then you can use that mapping legally there and save you 15 quid. Obviously, you can't do it if you're doing your own house extension because that's not the license for it. But if it's for council business, then you can do that. In fact, remind me to show it because it's relatively new in the software. Another example is publishing maps. So once you've drawn all your amazing maps into the software, you can choose to publish them to your website if you like. We've got two methods of doing that. You can PDF the map and publish the PDF, or you can create an interactive map that's zoomable and pannable and clickable using the software. And it creates a bit of code for you that you plonk into your website, and then it gives you an interactive map a bit like this. And so we've seen hundreds of parishes using this now to publish the information, share the information with their public. Some interesting just tourism examples. So this parish council down in Somerset, they exported some maps that then was put into a postcard that they then were giving out in the local post office. So as long as they weren't selling these postcards, they're allowed to use the mapping license to publish these maps and show people where there's interesting stuff in the village. It's just quite a nice example, really. So if you feel like you need to do any of this for publishing, we've had examples or queries where you want to publish a map to a newsletter or to the local gazette or whatever it is. You can do that providing it's got the copyright information, you're not selling the map, and it's for parish council business. And so if it's showing where there's a new something that's going to go up, then that's a valid use of that mapping, so you can publish that or share that information with the journalistic body. But if you get worried about mapping copyrights because they are brutal and confusing, just drop us an email because we'll be able to advise on it. There are lots of other uses of Parish Online. Go and have a look on our website. Olivia's put together a really good stock of real life examples of how other parishes have used it. So if you need some inspiration, then go and have a look there as well. And we'd love to add your stories on here as well. We're always keen on adding new ones in. Even if you're just new to Parish Online and you've done something you think is really, really basic that no one cares about, actually, it might help other parishes do exactly the same thing. So yeah, do share those with us. Okay, we're now going to do a 3-year digital mapping degree in about 5 minutes. The reason being, this is really useful to understand how Parish Online works behind the scenes before you start using it. So I apologize in advance, but I promise it's useful. Parish Online is a GIS, which stands for Geographic Information System, which is essentially maps and software put together. digital maps and software. And the way I can best understand how a digital mapping system works and the word layers is an overhead projector. Now, again, we're going to have to exclude Olivia here because she doesn't know what the hell one of these things is. But for the vast majority of us, you remember in geography where you used to put a layer of acetate on, and then geography teacher would draw some contours onto the layer of acetate, and then they'd put another layer of acetate on, and they'd draw where the church is and where the pub is and all that kind of stuff, and then another layer on, you put the rivers on and all that kind of stuff. That's exactly what's happening in Parish Online. You're putting layers of acetate on top of the map to build up different themes of information. Whether that's a layer of acetate or a layer that you've been given, so ones that are already in Parish Online for you, or it's one that you've created, a blank layer of acetate you put onto the OHP and then you start drawing your information. That's essentially what's happening in Parish Online. The only difference is it's intelligent. You've drawn the little point on the map, but you can attribute it with information stored within that point. So that's the reason why we don't use OHPs anymore, because we can do that interactive level of it as well. We can attach photos to that point. We can attach information to that point. But is that a terrible example? Do you kind of see what I mean there? That's essentially what's happening in the mapping system. And you'll have used this before. So if you've ever searched for a pub in Google Maps, which I hope you have, then that's doing exactly the same thing. You've got your background map, and then you've got a layer on top, which has got all the red blobs that show you where all the pubs are. So Google Maps is a really, really simplistic GIS because it just shows you one layer on top. So Parish Online shows you lots more, and that's how that works. So the reason for this GIS is so you can make positive, evidence-driven decisions. So we are all about science here. We're not about the arts in geography. Even though all of my friends say that I do colouring in for a living, this is all about data and evidence and information. And yes, it's all about layers. So when we think about layers later on, when I say it a billion times, we're talking about those layers of acetate. And so here's a kind of representation of them. So again, we bring in lots of layers for you for general purpose information that will help you understand your environment, help you find answers. But we also allow you to create your own ones as well. I'll come on to that. But yes, you can switch layers on and off depending on what you're doing. So you're not going to log into Parish Online and turn all the layers on. I mean, you can, but it will create a really messy map. So you just switch the layers on that you find useful at that particular time, or the job that you're doing at the time. And as I mentioned, most of these layers have information stored within them. So I've already given you an example of that with that speed camera, where it's got information stored within it. If you go into Parish Online and switch on the listed buildings layer, you click on one of the points. On the left-hand side, it's going to tell you the grade, it's going to tell you information about it, the date it's listed, and it's also got a hyperlink that goes off to the Historic England website as well. So there's lots of information stored within each of these layers that aren't just there just by eye. And obviously, as I say, you can go and create your own layers that have information stored within them. Now, a little hint to the styling we do later. With a mapping system, we can be really clever with it. So let's say we've got these shapes on the map. They have information stored within them. Instead of individually styling each area, I can tell the software to say, I want all of the yeses to be red. I want all of the no's to be green, counterintuitively. Yeah, you can make it dynamic. So if you go and change that from yes to no, it's going to automatically change the color of that area, which is really good, because then if you start building up information, the map is going to come alive to you, and it's going to show you that information on the map. And you'll just start to see correlations, and you go, oh, right, okay, this is all happening over here, and oh, this is interesting. So I'll show you some examples of that in the session today. Okay, so your map layers this is just a little doodle I did, sorry, it looks terrible. Your map layers can consist of points, lines, and polygons. Polygons / areas, whatever you want to have your terminology, we call them polygons. But your map layers can only include one type. So we'll take an example of someone who wants to do some walking routes. So with a walking route, I would choose a line layer because then I can trace a line out. But as part of that project, I also want to put in where the styles are, where there's trip hazards, where there's flooding, whatever. And I want to represent those as points. So I'd actually create another layer that I'd then have 2 layers switched on at the same time. One of them is my line layer, which has got the walking routes, and the other one has got my hazards and styles and whatever on it. So that splits the 2 out, and it means you can change the styling for both of them independently. But that's how the layer styling works there. So you only can put one type in each layer. Some examples of what you could use this for. So obviously this is something you can't do in the software, so don't even try. But you can put trees in as points, cycle routes as lines, local green spaces as polygons. Just choose whatever is most appropriate for the information you're trying to store. I've put this one in because I have seen it before where they get a little bit confused and a parish starts creating a layer and puts a point in it, and then goes and creates another layer and puts another point in it. And I've logged in and they've got 150 layers and they're all just trees. Please don't do that. You can do one layer, you can put multiple things, multiple items in one layer. So it's just a warning for you. It's annoying to unpick, which we do help them with. You know, if you make mistakes, it's fine. Let us know what you've done and we'll help you out. But just don't make that mistake in the first place because it's very tedious to do. Okay, before we start, there are a few little tips for using Parish Online. It's a little bit old school, but try and use a mouse if you can. Even if you connect a Bluetooth mouse to your iPad, try and use a mouse because it just gives you a little bit more accuracy when you come to drawing shapes out. It does work on touchscreen devices and on mobile phones. It's just easier when you're sat at a computer with a mouse using Parish Online. Use a modern web browser. Avoid Internet Explorer like the plague. It's discontinued now, so you shouldn't be using it anyway. But any modern web browser that's up to date, go and check that it's up to date. Really helps the software give you all the tools and data and speed available. Make it full screen. That also has the benefit of showing you all the tools and as much map as possible. And we know in some browsers, you can change the zoom, which isn't the zoom of the map, but it's the zoom of the whole page. It makes text bigger, but it also then starts to remove elements of the software because the software thinks that it's going onto a smaller screen. And so it gets rid of things to declutter. So just make sure it's at 100%. I mean, obviously, if you can't actually read the text, then do bump it up a bit. That's absolutely fine, but just optimally, it's better at 100%. Okay, let's go into a practical session now. Olivia, is there anything while I'm farting around with my computer, is there anything that's come up that we should cover?
Not urgently. We've got a few questions, but they can wait until the Q&A at the end of the session.
Right, let me just do this. Okay, so when you go to the Parish Online website and you've signed up, you'll eventually get sent through to the login page, and that's this page here. You have your username, which is usually something like admin@, and then the code that represents your parish council. These are all unique codes that we've generated for all parishes, and then your password. If you're unsure what your password is, if it's not working, just get in touch with us. We usually sort these things out pretty quickly. But let's get logged in. Okay, when you log in, it might be a bit like this. When you log in, you'll get a map of your parish. To some people, that's mind-blowing in itself. They might be a new clerk to the area, or they go, oh, right, I didn't realise you had that bit as well. Go and have an explore of your parish. By default, it might have this little map mask on it, as we call it. Now, what that does is it kind of just focuses the map on your area. It's really good for making really nice, pretty maps when you come to use the print tool. But for general day-to-day working, you might want to just toggle it off at the bottom there. That's up to you. But yeah, it just shows you your parish. Obviously, this is the map. You can pan and zoom. By pan, I can just click and hold and drag the map around. And wherever I let go, it will then update the map to that area. And with the zoom, you can use the plus and minus buttons, or you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse, which is a lot faster to get around. And we've also got this drag zoom here. So you can click that and zoom into a particular area. So that's the way you'd get around on the map. There is a search tool as well, so you can search for a particular address and that will take you to it. This is a national address search. So it's going to search for addresses that are outside your area. And yes, that is my house. So that's going to zoom you to that location. I am sat there. If you get lost, then you can always use the home button here or the back button. So the back button will take you back a few map steps, and the home button will just ping you straight back to the center of your parish. You'll see that it's got this point hung over on here as well, still there. I can clear that from the map if I want to. It disappears. But yeah, this is a national address search, updated every 6 weeks. So you'll start to see those new housing developments pop up after a month or two. So it's much more up to date than you'd get in typically Google Maps or anything like that. We're getting a national address data set that's coming from the districts and the counties and compiled into a national data. Okay, on the left-hand side, we have our layer control. It's split into 2 different colors of collections. All of these are expandable. So these are kind of groups of layers rather than the layers themselves. So these greeny ones at the top are your base maps. We normally have one of these on for context. And you can see there's a little halo around here indicating that there's a layer switched on in this collection. So I'm just going to click the title of it and it expands that collection open to see what's available in here. And by default, it's switched on the OS, we call it the premium stack, with a standard style. Now, the reason why we call it a stack is because actually it's consisting of lots of different Ordnance Survey products all in one go. If I zoom out, it goes to a national view, but it's generalized the map. By the way, you can search the entire country. You can zoom around the entire country if you want to. We don't bother restricting the data for you here. Obviously, your license is for your parish business use, so as they call it, that's the technical term. So you can't use it to plan your holiday in Wales, but you can use it to look at your surrounding area. But the point is, this stack layer chooses the most appropriate scale of mapping at a particular size, at a particular zoom level. So as I zoom in, you'll see that the mapping increases in detail, again, as you would expect in Google Maps. But then when you zoom in, you get to the ultra level of detail mapping here, where you've got building outlines, proper pathways, property outlines, all that kind of stuff. The difference between these 3 are just their different styles. So I could switch this one off and switch this one on. And the only difference is it's exactly the same data, but it's black and white instead. So that's introducing you to switching those layers on and off as well. It's just a case of clicking the title for them. They'll do a little spinny for a second. You probably just missed that. But that's them just loading the data and then it comes back. So also introducing here to the concept of layers, there is a layer already switched on here. So again, I can see from here that there's a layer switched on and it's the parish boundaries. So by default, you've got two layers switched on. You've got the ordnance survey mapping and the parish boundary. And so I can switch the parish boundary on and off as well. I could go and switch on the district boundary. Zoom out a bit and I can start seeing the district boundaries. And I can switch on the county boundaries as well. But and here you've got all the administrative boundaries, and here you've got all of the political boundaries, so wards and electoral divisions and polling districts. And you'll notice I've got two layers switched on here. That's absolutely fine. You can do that. You can have as many layers on as you like, or tolerate, because eventually the mapping gets a bit complicated. There's too much on the map. I'm not going to, every time I say this, I'm not going to labour looking through all of these data sets. That's for you to go and do and have an explore, take out a free trial, go and have a play with it. But I will pick out some of my favourites. And my favourites are the ones that local authorities, like the local councils, tend to find the most useful. So most useful, number one, is under addresses. We have, it's called address space plus points. It's addresses. If you switch that one on, it will show you a blob on top of every single addressable property in the country. There's about 34 million records in that one layer there. Just a small data set. I can click on one of those. So I've clicked on one of those red blobs, and on the left-hand side, it's turned that layer control into an information panel. And we just call it the info click button. When you do that, it brings up all the information about that point. So this is showing you that there's information stored within that point there. Showing you things like it's residential and it's detached, that it's an approved one, it's not like a pending or historic record. It's got the postcode, it's got the postal address, and it's also got a thing here called a unique property reference number. Now, local authorities are starting to use UPRNs, as they're known, in a lot more things now. They're using it to match council tax records, energy performance certificates, all sorts together. So we use those as well for some of our databases. But you can use this as well. If you are referencing a local authority, you can reference a UPRN if you want to. Okay, but that's just for information. There's nothing I can change here, but I can click the little close button, and that takes me back to the layer control here. Now, just so you're aware, you'll notice that most of these are red blobs, but some of these are blue blobs and green, and there's some white ones around as well. What does that mean? Well, to find out what anything means on the map, you can go to View and then Legend. Some people might know this as a key. And then on the left-hand side, you'll notice a lot of things happen on the left-hand side. It shows you what the difference is between those points. And that's quite an interesting thing. So this is a style that we've done based on the information stored within it. So we're using that dynamic styling already. And it's quite good, actually. Certainly, if you go to a more urban area, you can really pick out your areas of commerce compared to your residential areas. It really sort of highlights that on the map quite extremely. So that's quite a nice thing to do, actually, and sort of it picks out where your natural areas of commerce are. And then you've got other, amazingly, have addressable properties as land as well. Don't ask, it's Ordnance Survey, it's how they do it. But also on this legend, you've got the parish boundaries and the district boundaries as well. So whatever you've got on the map, you can use this legend to see what's actually there. Okay, so addressing, I think, is really, really handy. What else have we got? If I go to HM Land Registry, let's zoom into an area here. Now, if I switch this one on, it gives me all of the freehold property boundaries. Now, don't get too excited because this doesn't actually tell you who owns it. It doesn't tell you the title number, I'm afraid, but it does show you where the ownership lies. So in most urban areas, this is going to be typically the same as the Ordnance Survey mapping, although actually you can see here, it's not always the case. So that load up a bit more. You can see that actually there's a disagreement here between what Ordnance Survey think it should be and what Land Registry think it should be. Good luck trying to pick apart that one. This is where you do need to go to Land Registry, pay your £3 or whatever it is to actually get the definitive information and ownership. This is just an indication of where the boundaries are, but give you a really good starting point really for doing any investigative work you're doing. But again, in urban areas, let's just go and do this, for example. So let's go to the Land Registry website. Let's make sure I go to the gov.uk one, search for property ownership information. And you might have seen this before. It gives you the thing where it says put in the house number and put in the postcode. Now, in urban areas, that's going to be pretty easy because you've got the address points that you can reference, and it might be one high street. It's going to be pretty obvious. But if you go out into more rural areas, it's not going to be as clear cut. So take this area, for example. If I turn that off, there's no indication here that there's any kind of change in ownership over this piece of land. But I've switched the cadastral parcels on. I can see that there is. And I've got this 8-digit code here. So this is really handy. So if I go back to property search, instead of putting in a house name and number, I can switch this search into an 8-digit code search by clicking Inspire ID. That's what they call these codes. So I can go and put in 2934. See if I've used this one before. 2246. Not robots. Click search. Okay, so it's giving me the address as it sees it there. So that's something that I wouldn't have been able to pick out from this. And actually it's showing me that it's classed as part of this, really. So it's a really good thing to just, when you need to find out about something, if there's some query over a piece of land, you can at least start here to do a bit of research, and then that might help you later on in your work. So again, that might have taken days and days to find out, but if you can bring this up in Parish Online, then it take a few minutes. Okay, there's lots of information here, flooding data, historic data, listed buildings. There you go, there's a listed buildings layer, coloured up by their grade. You can click on them. If you notice that it doesn't just immediately show you the information, it's because where you've clicked, it's found more than one thing. And you think, well, there's only one point there, but actually it's picking up this whole shape as the parish boundary and the whole shape of the district boundary. So it's just the software is asking you, what do you actually want to look at? What did you intend on clicking on? So you can just say the listed building, and then it will give you the information about it. It also gives you this link off to the Historic England website. Wow, the Historic England website's slow. Bored now, but it will. That will take you off to that site. So we've got a few things there that do that. If you click on the parish boundary, we've got another link here which goes off to the Centre for Sustainable Energy carbon capture calculator. No, community carbon calculator. That's what I meant to say. That takes you off to their page, which loads fast, and it gives you an estimation of CO2 emissions in your area. You can use this to compare against other areas. So you can see how you sit, and it also allows you to produce a report from here. So with Parish Online, we have a big environmental agenda. We want to use Parish Online for the good of the planet. This is just one small step to doing that, is linking you to this data that's available. And it's really interesting, so that you have to read the methodology on it from CSE, but they take into account things like the residents' demographics and aviation usage, for example. So you might not have an airport in your parish council, but your residents travel. So it's looking at it as a whole. But anyway, go and have a look at that, because it's really interesting. And there we go, the listed buildings website finally loaded and gives you some extra information about that property. Okay, so I'd hope that you'll be pretty confident with just viewing the maps at this stage. I think you'll be able to log in, have a play around, have an explore, click all of these on and see what they do, and at least have them as a kind of reference point for when you want to start doing something with it. There is one more that I'll do. You know, in like Google Maps, you'd normally have a little satellite button somewhere in the corner. We have the same thing in Parish Online. It's just not quite as obvious because you've got a bit more configuration available. You know, we're talking about the APGB with the aerial photography. That's under this collection here. So I can switch on the aerial photography. The numbers here relate to the resolution. So each pixel represents 12.5 centimeters on the ground. It's an external service. So this is coming from a different data center, which is why we can't really vouch for the speed of it. And it's blooming slow a lot of the time. So just be patient with it and zoom into a smaller area if you can, but it will get there eventually. And you can see what's happened now is I've actually got two base maps switched on. I've got the Ordnance Survey mapping switched on, and I've got the aerial photography on. And that's fine, you can do that. And actually it gives you the best of both worlds in some cases. In this scenario, it's quite nice to switch off the standard style of OS mapping and switch on the white style, because then it just gives you kind of an outline of the mapping. So you get the Ordnance Survey mapping and the aerial photography at the same time. So if you like that style, then you can use that one if you like when you log in. Now, there are some your preferences for how you log into Parish Online. We don't allow you to say, right, I want to have this on by default when you log in, but we do have the concept of bookmarks here. So you can set a bookmark, which is the layers you've got switched on and the position you are on the map. And it will save those two criteria. And it means that if you're constantly having to switch on all your neighborhood plan layers and switch on the aerial photography and switch the OS styling to something else, and you're doing that every time you log into Parish Online, that could be tedious. Set a bookmark and it will do it all for you. I won't go into that now, but you can do that. Okay, let's switch off the aerial. Let's put the normal OS mapping back on. Let's reset back to home. And there we go. Right, the first thing I would recommend you starting to do in Parish Online, because it's a really good way to introduce you to the editing tools in the software, is use the asset register layers that we've got pre-built here on the left-hand side. So if I expand this collection here, you can see I've got all of these layers ready for me to use, and these are editable for me. So not all of them, not all the layers are editable, obviously, because they're coming from different sources, but typically the ones at the top are. So there's probably going to be some, here's one that I made earlier on this, but let's switch on the buildings, for example, and you can see that it's plotted some points on the map already. This might have been from a previous clerk that's done it. It wasn't, it was from me, the last demo session I did, but that might be the case. So you might already have data in the software. You can click on these and it will give you information about it. This is information that you or your colleague have entered yourself. Let's just close that for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add to this layer. So to do that, you'll notice when I hover over here, the tick turns into a little cog icon. If you learn one thing from the training session today, it's how to get to this, this section. So when you click on this little cog, it pops up a mini menu for that layer. And you've got a few options. And the key one here is add feature. So this is where you can add something onto the map. And you're adding it into that buildings layer. So when you do that, the left-hand side changes where you can add attribution. And you'll notice I've got this little blue marker following me around on, I've got a little crosshair as a cursor now. All I'm going to do is click on the point where I own this building. I'm just going to choose any of these, put it there. You can see it's kind of stamped a little marker onto the map. And now in the left-hand side, I'm going to add information about that point. So anything in red is mandatory. Everything else is optional. Just try and add in as much as you can. It's not a competition, but the more you put in, the better it's going to be. The more you're going to help your future self when you come to look at this information. So let's put in what it is. So this is going to be our, what should we call this? It's going to be our new village hall. Put in a name of it, whatever it is. I'm not going to put any of this information in, but you can. Like, I'm not going to waste your time doing that. But you'll notice that there's things that you can put in from when it was last purchased. You don't have to click through here back to 1962. That would be really tedious. You can click on the title here and it takes you back into these different views. So you can quickly scroll back to an old date and put that in. So that puts it in a nicely formatted date field for you. Put in the asset value, the replacement value. This could all help when it comes to an insurance claim, and also helps you look at whether you, actually I know as one of BHIB's campaigns at the moment is on underinsurance. So having a building that you own not valued correctly, and then if the thing goes up in smoke and you say, well, it was insured for 100 grand, but actually it's 400 grand, you've got 300 grand shortfall. They're really keen on making sure you put the correct values in, getting a valuation, getting the right amount on there, because they'll actually, you have to check with them, but from what I understand is they're going to give you better policies because you've got better information on there rather than something that's made up. So this is your opportunity to kind of review that as well. This is where Parish Online could get quite time consuming, because you could end up going down a rabbit hole with each one of these assets. So all I'd recommend is pick your battles. Don't feel like this is going to be a massive onerous task to do. No one's judging you. Add the information in as you find it's convenient to add, and then build it up over time. And then all of a sudden you'll realize that you've got a really good database running. It just takes a little bit of effort here and there. But yeah, don't labor over everything. Put in the information you know, save it onto the map, and then you can always come back to it later on and add them in. Now, if I'm doing buildings or whether I'm doing something like benches, I would just choose the right layer for this. So street furniture. Let's go in, click the cog. Remember, that's what we're doing. We're clicking the little icon there and going to add feature. And then I'm going to add my street property. Now I'm going to do fake examples just for speed, but obviously you can do this properly. And you could have things like the aerial photography on to help you. You can see benches from the aerial photography a lot of the time. So let's put one on the map here. It's a bench. put my information in, click save. There's another one here. You could see that very quickly I can start adding a lot of information into the map. At least getting the geography of where these things are onto the map is a really good start, because later on you can come back and sort this out. Also, a good thing to do would be to say, put in an ID. So this could be, ID 123. That could help you as well. So at least you've got an identifier for that point. Okay, so you can start to very quickly see I stayed in this view. I didn't have to go in to click add feature each time. It stays in this view to allow me to add multiple points in one go. And I've also got a little quick switcher here, so I can switch the layer that I'm editing. This little drop down here, and so I can go and add something else in if I wanted to, whether it's let's say, add a defib in. It switches the view. There's a defib here, and add it onto the map. And you can see that what you might have noticed is by using these pre-built layers, it's doing all of the styling for you. So you don't have to say, right, I'm going to have a point here and it needs to look like a bench. We've done all that work for you. So when you put in a defibrillator, it looks like a defibrillator on the map. And so you can see I can keep repeating it, but you can quickly add information onto the map and then refer back to it when you need to. I'm going to go a little bit off piste for my normal training, because I think it's a good point here, looking at these benches, to introduce you to the table view. If I click the table view, it brings you up a full screen page, and it says, okay, what layer do you want to look at? So I'm going to go to the outdoor property layer. And you can see it's listing the assets in a spreadsheet style view. And you can see the ID that I typed in on that particular one. That's why it's really good to maybe put an ID in, because then you can, if you can reference that against an old spreadsheet or an old document that you've got, or even something in your head, you can start to add the extra information about it as well. And from here, you can actually edit. So I could actually start doing this. And even date purchase has still got these little fields in here as well. And so this is a really good view to see where your emissions are in your data set. You can see the bits you're missing in a much easier way than you can from the map. And the map is the perfect way to visualize everything as a whole. This is a really good way to see it as a traditional table. So you can use those two tools, the feature editor, where you're adding the points onto the map, and the table view if you prefer writing things in a table style. It's not as adept as Excel is, that table view. It's much more simplistic, but it helps you visualize everything there. So those are two really good ways to get started with your asset register. We get asked a lot about whether you can import spreadsheets or import PDF documents to start using your asset register. And we have tried, but it's really difficult because all the spreadsheets are different and almost none of them have any geographic information assigned to them. So you still need to say to the software where those points are. So actually it's been a lot easier for them to just add them in as we go. And it's a good way to have a bit of a reset and an audit of those assets as you do them, to go, actually, do these exist anymore? Is this up-to-date information? So again, that's why I'm saying pick your battles, because that could be a project in itself, but making sure that it's there with correct information. If you're starting with Parish Online from scratch, you can start knowing you're putting good information in there rather than copying in old bad information. So that asset register is there for you to use. We have other pre-built layers in here as well. One of them is allotments. So we've got allotment plots and boundaries as pre-built layers. And if I zoom into another, here's one I've made earlier. Actually, it'd be good to put the aerial photography on here. So I've drawn in where my allotment boundary is, and I've started drawing in individual plots. And you can see these are color coded up by whether they are, well, let's have a look. Occupied, vacant, not fit for use, or don't know. Those are my allotment plots there. So you can start to use this to put tenant information in when renewals are up, whether they're available, all of that kind of information. We have another one, which is cemeteries. Again, we have plots and boundaries to a mapping system. They're the same, and you can go and add that information in. We also have the planning layer, which is for planning map outlines. Let's quickly do this. So let's say, for example, you want to draw a planning map outline for this village hall. I've clicked on the cog, go to add feature. This time around, I haven't stuck a single point on the map. I've now got, I've done one, but now it's just following me. I'm not holding any buttons down at the moment. It's just following my mouse around. I'm going to click on the next corner, and then the next corner. I'm going to keep doing that. Okay, I'm not doing this particularly accurately, but you can do it better than I can. And you'll see it's tracing out this area. And then to finish, you'll notice that I'm getting to the first point I drew on. It kind of snaps to it. That's your indication that it wants to finish. It wants to complete that area. And if you do that, it's completed the area. I can put in what it is. This is the ownership boundary, and click save. And it draws it into a standard style on the map. And then I can draw another one in. Let's say that they're doing an extension. And this is the application area. Whatever, I've got those kind of mixed around, but you know what I mean. Save all that. Let's put the grayscale OS mapping on. And let's introduce you to the print tool. So when you click print, it creates this halo around on the map. So this, whatever's visible without being in this haloed area, is representing an A4 landscape piece of paper. So I can still move the map around, and I can zoom in and zoom out still, but all the time, this bit is representing an A4 piece of paper. So I can choose that and choose a title, description. The scale is automatically chosen at the moment to a kind of best fit. And I've got an option to save out as a PDF or an image file. But I've got a few different templates here. So I can choose A4 portrait, A3 landscape, A3 portrait, and we've also got a planning application template. Now what this does is it puts it in a particular format that local authorities like when they receive planning applications. So it's particularly good to do. And we can choose a standard size. 1 to 1250 is a typical planning application location plan, or we can have them as a block plan. I keep getting those the wrong way around, but you know what I mean. And let's click print. When I click print, it goes away to our server. It goes and generates that PDF for you and brings you back a link. If you haven't given it a title, it'll just give it a generic, silly name. But if you click this little button here, it will open that PDF up in a new tab. So Parish Online is still over here, but it's opened up a new tab, which has got your planning application document there, which, depending on your browser, you will have usually a print or a save button somewhere around here, and you can go and choose those. So that hasn't cost me 15 quid, by the way. That was a free map to produce for me. And if I stuff it up, I can go and do it again. There's no limit to the number of prints you can do in here. You will not get charged. Let's do some other ones here. Another example, you can put legend, all this kind of stuff on. Let's do another one. So it's generating another one here, gives me another link. There we go, I've got a different output here. And this time it's got a legend on the side as well, if I want to include that. So you can see it's really quick and easy to generate these nice professional looking maps. And let's close down the print tool. Okay. So those are some of the layers that you've got available. Okay, I went off on a tangent into the print tool, but go and play with that. These layers that we've got pre-built for you that you can just start using and start adding your information into. That's a really good way to start. But for something like a neighborhood plan, you want to start adding your own layers in there. And so I'm going to introduce you to Parish layers. Now, when you log into Parish Online as a beginner, as a new fresh account, you will not have this collection here. And it's simply just not showing because there's no layers in it. It kind of simplifies the layer control for you. Some people get a bit confused by that. If I expand my collection here, you can see I've got lots of, here's one I've made earlier, style demos, but we're going to go and create a new one today. So there is no limit to the number of parish layers you can create, but do be sensible with it to try and pick the themes that you want to add in. But we know from experience that neighborhood plans do end up having lots of layers of information. One good point actually is there are lots of neighborhood planning consultants out there now who will get in touch with you and say, right, okay, great, yes, we can do this. What's your Parish Online account? Because you can give them access to Parish Online and then actually add the information in on your behalf. They know how to use Parish Online, they know the information they want to add in, and they can get started really quickly with it. And that information they add in is in your account, so that it's there for you forever. So that's really worth asking if you're starting a neighborhood plan or you're in process with one, to ask your consultant if they need to use Parish Online. And if they don't, be really suspicious. Why do you not want to use it? But yeah, so they can do that. Okay, but if you're starting from scratch, then you're just doing a project. We had some really good ones just coming up to Christmas where parishes were creating new layers where they were going to show their parade routes for Santa going around on the back of a Land Rover, or they wanted to plot where the Easter eggs were that they were going to hide around the village for the parish council event that they were putting on. So you can do some really nice things, or it can be where there's particular issues with litter or fly tipping or whatever it is. You can start plotting this information onto the map, start to build up a picture of something. Right, so to create a layer, we're going to go to create at the top. And we've got add feature, but that's where we add feature to a layer. This is a different route in from that little cog icon. And all it'll do is it'll go, yes, okay, but what layer do you want to add a feature to? We're not doing that for now. The other option is to create a new layer. And that's what we do want to do. So let's click new layer. And it pops up with this panel and it says, okay, what do you want this layer to be called? So this is your opportunity to give it a theme. So if I took in benches, bench, for example, it may prompt you to say, hang about, we've already got a category called benches in the street furniture layer. Are you sure you want to create your own bench layer? You might want to, that's absolutely fine, but it will just prompt you about that. But if it's for anything else, you can just carry on doing it. Let's do a fly tipping one. I know we've already got fly tipping in there, I can see it. So I'd always want to check that. But for the case of this demo, we're going to add a new one in. Let's go next. Right, now it asks you what geometry type this is going to be. This is your opportunity to define whether it's going to be a point, a line, or a polygon data set. Now, for fly tipping incidents, they tend to be at one position. We don't need to know the area of a fly tipping incident. We don't need to know the length of a fly tipping incident. So we're just going to choose a point here. And I'm going to put in a description for my future self to remind me what this is all about. It's going to be the location of where Okay, and click next. And now this is where you can put the structure of that data together. So when you get to this bit, think about if you were starting a new Excel spreadsheet, what columns would you put at the top? What titles would you give them? So I'm going to say, I want to find out about the, I want to know the date of this incident. So I'm going to say this is a date type. I want to have a description. And that can be text. And I would like to have a status of this so I can see whether it's going to be sorted out or not. And in fact, we've got this, I can even set criteria here. So I can say this is outstanding. It's been sent to be sorted. And it's being resolved. It's up to you. That wasn't particularly good, but you can put that in. Description. I can put anything else in there as well. It could be what the cost of the council is. Wants to sort that out. That might be really good as a record that you can then view as a list to go, well, look, this is how much all the fly tipping has cost us in the last few years. That could be as a number or a text field. I'll leave it as text for now. And click finish. When you click finish, that bit goes away and it might seem that absolutely nothing's happened. But if this is your first layer, then your parish layers collection will appear. And if you've already got a parish layers panel, fly tipping is now available as a layer on that left-hand side with the description that I put in. So I can switch that layer on, and again, absolutely nothing happens on the map because there's no data in it yet. But I can go and add some information. And for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to put some points in just one area. Obviously, that's not really suitable if you're doing this in real life. But I'm just going to put a few quick ones in here. Okay, I've got those. We've got one that's, I've commissioned to go and get sorted out by a contractor. And there's one that's already done. Okay, I've got my fly tipping layer. It's really good. Lots of fly tipping happening here. But again, that would be quite good for you when you're putting these out to actually see the distribution of them around your parish. Now what I want to do is, this is fine as a piece of information, and it might be fine as a record. You can look at it in the table, but actually I want to visualize this a bit better. I want to see the ones that are still to be sorted and compare that to the ones that are already finished and or already resolved. And I can do that with the styling tool. So I don't have to change any data here. I can do this in styling. So for your own parish layers, you've got free rein to decide how the styling is. For asset register layers and other ones, it's fixed for you. So when I click on the cog here, I've got the add feature menu item, but I've also got style. So if I click on that, it will bring up a full screen page, and it says you have a single style. So all the points in that layer are going to be the same style, and they are all red blobs, red points. And I could say, okay, fine, but I want them all to be blue, and save that. And they're all blue, fine. But I still haven't solved my problem. I still haven't got them showing in different colors depending on their status. So let's go back into there. And instead I can choose a class-based style. So this is now going to be reading. By default, it starts to choose a date. I don't want it to do that. I want it to be based on the status. So it's the class based on the status, and it's pre-populated these styles here. So there's lots more configuration to the styling tool, we'll come on to that in the afternoon session, but I'm just going to do a simple one here. So let's say outstanding ones are going to be red, sent to be sorted are orange, and resolved are green. I might want to change the outline as well, just so they're all consistently black. And that'll do. Click save. Now I can see that they are colored up differently depending on their status. And if I go and edit one of them, and by editing, I'm going to click on one here, and I've got these options at the top. I can delete it, or I can edit it. And I can change the status to sent to be sorted, save that. That's now changed to an orange icon. So again, a really good way of visualizing the status of all of these incidents. And you can apply that styling to anything you're doing. In this case, it's useful as a kind of incident mapping thing, but it could be anything. You could just color up different fields differently depending on their type, or you can color up different points depending on the type of asset they are. So it's really configurable for that. I've got a few minutes left, so I'm laboring the editing of this, but that's the most important bit. Everything else you can click and see if you can break, and we'll cover in the afternoon session, but the editing is the thing that you really need to get familiar with. We've covered points and creating points, which I've just done. I've just covered editing them, which is going back into that edit item here and the delete icon. You'll notice there's an attachments panel here, which I can expand, and I can click on that to go and add a photo to it. So I can go and find a picture on my computer, and then it'll upload that picture into this point. It takes a few seconds for it to do that, just wait for it to do it. And that's now stored on our server, forever associated with that point. Okay. I covered the drawing of areas when we were doing those planning applications. You're tracing around the area. What I didn't do is I didn't cover lines, but lines are really simple. So let's see if I've got a line feature here. So with a line, it's exactly the same, where you start clicking along the map. And when I get to the end of a line, because I'm not going to close this, I'm not going to create an area, I just double click at the end where I want it to finish and click save. Now, when you're drawing these lines, if it's something really complex and you get it a bit wrong, you've got a little back button here that will take you back a few steps. So that just helps you out if you make a mistake. And if you've got a line or an area that's already been drawn that you want to go and change, you can click on it, go into edit it. And what you can do is on these junctions, you can see it snaps to the junction. I can just drag that into a new position. And anywhere along the line, you see it still follows me. There's no junctions there, but I can just click and drag to create a new junction. So you can start to end up with really complex, you can add the sort of complexity as you go and start to edit that line. So let's go back to that planning application outline I had as well. That's another example of an area. I'm going to go into edit it, and it's exactly the same thing. I can just drag it into shape. And you can see why I suggested to use a mouse at this point. There you go, and that just makes that change. Okay, so hopefully you should be comfortable with adding points, either in asset register layers or in your own layers, adding lines and adding areas, polygons. We've added information to our asset register. We've created our own layer and added information to that and styled it, and we've printed out. There are things like measuring tools, which we can cover a bit in the afternoon session, but I mean, it's here under tools. One interesting thing you might like to know is Parish Online automatically calculates the area and length of everything. So when you click on something like this, you've got all the information that you've typed in about it, but below that, you've got all these statistics about it as well. So it automatically calculates the area. It automatically calculates the perimeter. It automatically tells you who created it and when. It also tells you who edited it and when. So you've got a nice little audit log of that information. If you don't like meters squared, you can change the area to hectares or to acres, and it automatically generates that calculation on the fly. So you don't have to draw something and then measure it to find out how long it is or what the area is. It will go and do that for you. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left in this morning session. There's a lemsip over the hill for me, ready at 12 o'clock. So let's go to a Q&A now. I'll come out of sharing my screen. And Olivia, do you want to see? Oh, we've got lots of questions.
We've got a few questions. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Fine, but hopefully just as maybe.
As we go, but
sorry, what was that?
I've been answering some as we go, but we have got a few to cover.
All right. Hopefully that was a good overview of the editing functionality. That's the understanding how the structure of the software works and how to edit the information and add information into Parish Online is the most important part of it. Everything else will come naturally, and we've got in easy things that we can share afterwards and in the afternoon session. But that's the core part of it. Olivia, what have we got?
Okay, first question. Can we get land sale and planning application information as a data subset attached to properties?
Short answer is no, not at the moment. We are researching different data sets that could do that. Planning applications come from the local authority. So if your local authority is willing to share that feed of information, we'll take it. And then you'll have all current, like the weekly lists of planning applications in Parish Online. That would be really good. But we are also looking at a national data set. There's a company that aggregate all of those planning applications into one, and we're looking to see whether we can use that without bankrupting ourselves. But yeah, that's certainly an option. Land sale information, so that's land registry. Again, that's a paid service that we haven't got exact information for yet. So yes, so yes and no. We know it's information that will be useful, but there's usually a paywall for some of these data sets. So we're just trying to bring those in as we can, as economically as we can.
Okay, thank you. Can we get field names? Not sure who holds the data.
You mean like sort of Dave's field? Yeah, so like commonly local names of fields. No, there isn't that data available, I don't think.
Sorry to interrupt, Chris. I've just got the call I was on about, so you might have to take over the questions. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, go for it. Whoever's got the questions outstanding, shout out. Let's just go free for all. Mic's up for if you want to ask a question. But yeah, on field names, to me, that's local information. That's sort of, who asked that one?
Yeah, I did. I guess DEFRA. I mean, there are field numbers, aren't there? That I think DEFRA probably holds. Magic Map. There's information on Magic Maps, I think.
Oh, okay.
DEFRA supports, but also I think if you're claiming sort of environmental payments, through the, and is it the Rural Payments Agency? I'm not sure. If you're a landholder, then you have to put in the field name, I think.
Okay.
On that, it's just really interesting, because those names really add life to a local map.
Absolutely,
information. So I just feel they might be held somewhere, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I know some parishes have used the software as a kind of historical reference. So they've been actually taking local information and plotting it onto the map, going, there used to be a church here. This is called, something field. Those kind of things. Where there's an official data set of it. If you've got an example from Magic Maps, drop a screenshot of it and where you found it into an email to us, because we can put it on the list of things to add if it's in the right format and things. But yeah, happy to add that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oops. There's no order to it now because I can't get my eye into the chat. So just shout out, Steph.
Do you show utilities, broadband, fibers, pipes, anything like that, sewer pipes, and is that shown? A data
No, I've tried to get that data. Whenever we go to utility, they will refuse to share that information with us because they don't know how accurate it is and they don't want to be sued by you. And some of it's also protected information like national security information. I was like, well, you're a government body, so you should be allowed to have that information, where those sensitive gas routes are. But I have, apart from getting generalized national grid data that shows trunk routes for electricity and gas, which is in Parish Online already, I've not been able to get anything more detailed than that, I'm afraid. However, the local authority may have had a better go at getting that information from some utilities and water companies, and they may be willing to share that down to you. So talking to them as well would be a good way to interact with them. But yeah, that'd be great if we can get that, but they're also scared. That's actually an interesting point. If you come across a local authority who says, oh no, we can't share that data to you because we don't know how good it is, say, good, we can tell you, because you have better local information than they do. That's you as a government organization. You've got that local information. You could say, right, this is wrong, and they can go and fix it. And so actually having more eyes on to bad data, as long as it's got that sort of clarification to say this might be bad data, then you can go back and actually, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and improve that data, and then it benefits you and the district. That is one thing they'll come back and say, oh, we can't give that to you because it's crap data.
Thank you.
But yes, if you can lobby the council to ask them for that data, they usually come across and say, yes, it's just a case of time and effort for them. But if you can say that it's easy, which it is, then they might go for it. Okay, next hand I see. Oh, actually, some of you have not got video on as well. So, Andy, there we go. You've popped up.
Right. Can you add the information, web address information, underlying, associated with points on a layer, so that you could click on the map and go to an external website? An example I was thinking of, a contentious planning application, you could click on it to go straight to the local authority's page for that application.
Yes, you can. So that's in the admin part of Parish Online, where you can configure the layer. When we're talking about all the columns of layers, you can configure them to be hyperlinks.
Okay.
So yes, you can do that. Also, if the local authority website is particularly well structured in the URL, if it's always got the planning application number after a certain block of text, if your point just has the application number, you can get it to dynamically generate that URL for you.
Okay.
So that might be quite useful as well. We will touch on that in the afternoon session, actually.
Okay. Another question. You showed that you automatically calculate areas and lengths. Can they be easily added to the map, that information, so that you see the areas and lengths of things?
Yes, I mean, they kind of already are by virtue of you've drawn an area out. Or if you click on a parish boundary, for example, it automatically calculates that area for you. So the shape is already there on the map.
Right, but
Is that what you
you
mean?
gave the example of getting quotations for grass cutting.
Yeah.
So we could mark out our grass areas. Could we easily generate the map that includes the actual area of each area?
Oh, so you want to show the value of the area on the map?
Yes.
Yeah, you can do that with a label in the styling tool.
But can the label be automatically generated from the information that you've automated?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There's one bug with it. I'll show you one bug that it puts too many zeros on at the moment. It's the precision on it's gone all weird for some reason. But yes, it will show that.
Okay.
And yeah, we can. Someone reminds me, or I should be able to touch on that in the afternoon session.
And one final question from me. If you've got several councillors, each with their own area of interest, each creating their own layer, can they choose to restrict editing rights to that layer so others can see it, but nobody else can mess with it?
The short answer is no at the moment. If they become an editor, then they're an editor of any layer. It is something we're looking at, though, to see whether we can restrict down to individual users. At the moment, it's a trust-based system.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, we've been asked that a few times, and that we have a method of doing it, but it's not foolproof at the moment. So before we release it, we'll have to do a bit more work on it. But yes, that's certainly an intention for that. But in the time being, there's different user levels, which we'll cover in the afternoon session, and you can set them as an editor or a read-only viewer. But yes, there we go. Okay, anyone else got anything? If not, I'll start blindly scrolling through the chat, see if there's anything that pops up. Okay, unless I get anyone shouting out, then just out of interest, has that been a useful morning session for you? Has it given you a good idea of how to get on the software? Good, nice. So do take us up on that free trial of using it. If you can't make the afternoon session, just take that free trial, have a play with it. If you get to the point where you go, right, I need to ask council to buy this, yay, good. But the subscription is going to run out and it's going to switch you over onto an invoice. Just drop us an email, because we can just adjust that to when you're going to have your next meeting, so that we don't generate invoices with you not being able to have them approved and vice versa. So we are flexible with that, with those subscriptions, and making sure that you've got your discounts assigned to them. Yeah, it'd be great to have you on board. And the best thing you can do is, if you do start finding Parish Online useful, is do tell your peers, do tell your neighbouring parishes. That really helps. Word of mouth is the best thing that we've been able to get from Parish Online to extend its usage. And as it's grown, it's meant that we've not needed to increase prices. We haven't increased prices since 2014 because the usage has grown, and that meant that we can suppress any RPI on it at all. So pricing has stayed static for a long time to make it more affordable for more people. That's the intention. Yeah, I'm glad you'll find it useful, and hopefully you can join us for the afternoon session, which we can dig into some more of the functionality. Martin, you just put your hand up again?
Yeah, it's just a thought about neighbouring parishes. Can a single user have access to more than one parish council? I mean, I know not formally wouldn't be a member, but can those rights be given?
Yeah, that actually happens for the neighbourhood planning consultants and clerks who actually multi-clerk. That's the term. But yes, you can do that. The only kicker is our software really doesn't like the same email address being assigned to two accounts, and it goes a bit haywire. So if you're in that scenario, just drop us an email and we'll be able to do the jiggery pokery to make it happen. Right. Yes, that for the kind of multi-clerks or consultants, yeah, that can happen.
Right.
And it's usually best to do that rather than grouping two parishes together, or putting all the data into one Parish Online account for other parishes, because your PSGA licenses won't be right. And if you ever are no longer managing multiple parishes, you're that single point of failure for quite a lot of parishes. So do make sure you sort of put the data in the right parish account, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Just an example of that as well, we have had groups of parishes come to us and trying to twist our arm for a discount, and we are quite weak when it comes to that. So yes, we will do that. Okay, 3 minutes left. Anything else you want to ask, or shall we go for lunch and then meet back at 1? Oh, sorry, Karen, seen your hand go up.
Is it quite straightforward to create separate users in your accounts? Obviously, we've got an account with you. I'm the main admin on the account, but then I've just tried to have a play around whilst I'm on here. But is it just as straightforward as creating a user?
Yes, it is, yeah. And you set the permission level for them, type their email address in. It's the first thing we'll do in the afternoon session. But if you're in the admin panel already, under users, you'll be able to get cracking with that straight away.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Right, if that's that, just to clarify, if you're not going to join us for the afternoon session, thank you very much for joining us and spending time with us. The PowerPoint stack, if you can bear to see that again, will be distributed. This video will be distributed as well, won't it, Olivia?
Yes, it will, yeah.
If you're enjoying Parish Online, please tell us what you're doing with it. We'd love to have some case studies about it. What else? Yeah, tell your friends, whatever it is. But if not, I hopefully see you in the afternoon session and we'll cover more of it. Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks,
let's
everyone.
pause the recording.
Yes,
Olivia, can you do that wherever it is? Okay, let's get started with session 2. So this afternoon, after the morning session, we've gone through all the basics and hopefully got you up to scratch with doing general editing and using Parish Online in general. This afternoon session, we're going to look through some of the other functions within the software, looking at some of the behind the scenes configuration for it as well. So that will get you in a good position to be a good administrator of your Parish Online account. So let's go through and have a quick recap. Just for this session, Olivia's had to go off this afternoon, so she's not on the chat anymore, I'm afraid. So it's just me. So if any questions come up, you're just going to have to shout them out as you go if you see them at a relevant point, or we'll leave them at the end. And we almost certainly will finish before 2:30 in terms of the session. So that leaves us time for Q&A and just no stupid questions. They're all valid questions, just ask them. That's what I'm here for. So let's crack on. We're recording the session again, so just to let you know that session and this stack will still be shared as well. It's all part of the same thing. Okay, so a quick recap from the morning session. In terms of subscribing to Parish Online, you can take a free trial of it. You can subscribe to it yourself and you get the discount code. And you can also use BHIB's deal to get it for free. So do your own research on that, but that's available for you. We looked at why you would use maps in the first place. And so we covered all the different uses that you might want to use Parish Online for. In a nutshell, it's there as a blank tool, a blank canvas for you to use for anything you want to do with mapping. But we put the structure in place for things like the asset registers and creating your own parish layers. And one of the core functions of it really was storing permanent records. So converting your spreadsheet or paper-based records into map-based records and using Parish Online as a database. So you can rely on Parish Online as a databasing tool to allow you to reduce your reliance on paper copies and share your data amongst your colleagues. We went through the basics of how a mapping system works and how those layers worked. We talked about overhead projectors and things, and why you would have all these different layers in Parish Online. And that was really it. We went through the editing tools and how you'd go into edit, and the little cog that was the important little cog on each layer to get you into editing or styling the layer. So at this point, let's go on to the advanced tasks. So let me just rearrange my screen so I've got everything in the right place, which it currently isn't. Okay, so that's not the end of it. I need to go back into my map view. Okay, so hopefully you can all still see that I'm in Parish Online now again. Is that coming through for you okay? Okay, good. Sometimes I'm sharing a different screen and it's, what are you talking about?
It's a bit small, Chris. I'm not sure if it could be any bigger, or do I just need to put my glasses on?
That might be, I don't know what everyone else is seeing, but it might be to do with your settings on your Zoom. You should be able to, if all of your if all the webcams are on the right hand side and the map is on the left hand side, it's an invisible slider somewhere in between. You should be able to push the people out of the way and see more of the screen. Okay. I don't know if everyone else is getting that.
I get it.
Got it. There we go.
Thank you. Perfect.
Cool. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is, it was a question that came up in the morning session, and it was about sharing Parish Online with your colleagues. So to do that, we're actually going to, once we're logged in, we're actually going to go into the admin panel of Parish Online. Now, to get to that, there's another little cog in the top right-hand corner. And if you click that, you can go to administration. And also, just while we're here you can also log out of Parish Online. If you're on a public computer and want to specifically log out, you can do that here. Although I don't think I've ever logged out of Parish Online. I just leave it, and then when I start in the morning, it re-logs in, and that's it. But you can do that there. This links off to our knowledge base, and the admin panel administration is what we're after now. So let's click on that. And that will bring up a full screen page. There's no maps in this area. It's all just admin panel. And if you just wait for this little swirly in the top right to finish, that's pulling all of the settings down about your layer, about your Parish Online account. So wait for that to load, and then everything's displayed here. By default, it will show you your My Layers section. This is the menu item for it on the side, and it shows you all the layers that you've created. If you've inherited a Parish Online account, it might have all sorts of stuff in here. So go and have a look and have a bit of an audit, see what's good, see what's terrible. But you'll see that fly tipping layer that we created earlier as well. But what we're going to do is go to the users section, and you may just have one user here. It'll be your admin at, then your code, and that'll be your only user on there. But you can see I've created ones before. So first thing to say is do not share your username and password with anyone else. That's usually standard these days, but it's a quick option for giving someone else access to Parish Online. However, they now have exactly the same permissions as you as an administrator. And if you ever need to change your password, then you're either going to lock someone else out of it, or you're going to have to tell them their new password. And then what's the point in passwords? So we have a facility in Parish Online where you can add additional users. There's no limit to the number of users you can add. The only limitation is that they must be a part of the council. So you can't create a kind of public user for Parish Online and then stick it on your website. That breaches the terms. Don't give members of the public access to it, even if it's a reader access. We'll come on to your options for sharing data with the public later. This is for staff, councillors, and volunteers, and neighbourhood plan groups. By all means, those extensions or consultants who are doing work on your behalf. So it's very simple here. We have a little plus button in the top under the users section. And if you click add, then it'll bring up this little panel here. So here we will add your additional user in. So you can be as descriptive as you like with this. I would certainly recommend choosing named users rather than putting something like councillor in and then creating a generic councillor login. Because if one of your councillors changes, you've got to change it for everyone. Again, it's the same principles, just don't share accounts. Always create named users. Let's put this person's details in and their email address. And then you can put a department in if you like. That's kind of a hangover from the software that we have for our local authorities and commercial customers, but it's there if you want to use it. And the important bit here is choosing the type. So here we have it's a hierarchical system. So the top one is an admin. They have the same rights as you. So they can add new layers, edit data, create public maps, change the billing details, give us a ring and cancel the account, all of that. So that's God level. It's actually always okay to have another admin in the account if you wanted to have a bit of a backup. So when you're on holiday, someone else can do the stuff for you, but that's up to you. The next level down or up on this list is a data manager. Now they have exactly the same rights as you, except for they can't control the billing. So that little billing section on the left-hand side disappears. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure I finish this, because otherwise I won't get through the whole session. So yeah, data manager can create layers, edit layers, do everything else. The next level is an editor. They can log into Parish Online and edit any existing layer. So that could be the asset register layers, or it could be parish layers. The only thing they can't do is create new layers. Now that's quite good if you've got a volunteer or a counsellor who you've created a layer for them to start adding some information in about. You've spent the time on setting the structure up for it, and you don't want them to go and mess that around. So an editor is a good person, a good level to have the majority of people adding onto the account, because they can edit things, but they can't go and create new layers called Chris's Fantastic Layer 1 or Chris's Scottish ski holiday, whatever it is. They can't mess things up like that. And then finally, you may have guessed, the reader. They have no editing permissions at all. All they can do is log in and look at the data. So some really mean clerks call that counsellor mode. Some counsellors call it clerk mode. I'm not getting involved, but those are your 4 permissions there. So it's quite crude in terms of the permissions levels. There's no kind of specific editing for each layers, but in the morning session, that's something we were talking about and something we're looking at being able to add. Okay, so let's say these people are an editor. Then when you click Create User, it asks you, do you want to send them an email for them to be able to set up their set up their password rather. The only reason you wouldn't want to do that is if you knew they were off for a week and the email link lasts for 48 hours, in which case you have to reset it again anyway. So you might want to avoid that there. But if you click that, it will send them an email saying, create a new email, create a new password for Parish Online. What it doesn't tell them is their username, which you can tell them. So it would be chris@24ub999. It won't tell them why you've given them access to Parish Online. And that's your opportunity to tell them why you've given access to Parish Online. We don't define that, but give them some context for why you're giving them access, what they're allowed to edit, and what the limitations of using the software is. So the fact that it's for parish use only and not for their own business or not for their own side project or personal project they're working on, it's only for parish business. So we could set this up so that it sends them the information, they can log in straight away, but this is your opportunity to set some ground rules with your colleagues. No, I'm not going to do that now. But then once you've got that, it will add them onto the list and they are there ready to be able to log in straight away. Just seen a question. I'm going to try and keep on top of the questions on the side, but if you think I've moved on to the next section and I've missed it, just shout out, just unmute and shout at me. So can we add new users during the 30-day trial? Yes. The 30-day trial is, for all intents and purposes, a full Parish Online account. We don't restrict anything in your demo. Okay, so you've got your users here. Best to keep an eye on this occasionally to see who still needs to have access and who should be removed from having access. And again, that really plays into having those individual users. So you can go and remove Dave because Dave's no longer a counsellor. You can also use the little edit icon here to go and change the details of those people. So if you're changing email addresses as a whole part of the council, then you can go and change them here. The email addresses are assigned to an account so that if someone forgets their password, they can use the reset password facility on the login page, which then sends them an email to create a new link. That's the kind of validation that we have for it. So sometimes if you've inherited a Parish Online account and it's using an old AOL.com email address and you're not getting the emails, that's probably why. Just let us know and we can sort those things out. Okay, so that's the user panel there. Are there any questions at that point? I'd be happy to take questions as we go in these little sections. But hopefully that's pretty simple. But yeah, no limitations on those. Right, let's go. I'm going to mix things around a bit, so I have it in the agenda, but I'm going to go to the layers section here. Now, this is where you have a bit more control over your layers. And in the map view, you can't go and edit the title of one or change the structure of it. You do all of that here. So very simply, you can change the title here. I'm not going to change it to that because I've already got one there, which is a very silly way of doing it, but you can go and change that there. Every time you make a change, keep a lookout for the little yellow save button in the top right hand corner. That will just commit those changes as you make them. Be a little bit patient with that button because it goes away, does some checks, and then make sure it's all okay and updates the system. So yeah, just be patient with that one. This is the general tab, that's just title and description. The next tab along is the columns. So these are the columns that we set in the morning session for this layer. And you can see I've just got an array of tick boxes. This gives me some control over how this layer is used. So I can untick the ability for these items to come up in the info click panel on the left-hand side. So whether they're searched in the table view or whether they can be visible in that info click, I can actually remove them. I don't have to go and delete the data. I can just hide them from view, which is quite handy. The next one along here is required. So, you know, when you're filling in a form on a website and it says, no, you must put in your, you must put in your email address, and it flashes up red if you don't. This is your ability to set that. So with this layer here, if I say no, anyone who's adding a fly tipping incident into that layer must put in a date and must put in a status, then I can set those two as required fields. So it means that someone wouldn't be able to save that if they haven't added those two things in. The save button's grayed out. So it gives you a bit more control over the quality of data entry there. So, you know, in the morning session where I was just putting in assets, but I wasn't putting any information in about them, that's quite lazy of me. If you want to be a bit more structured than that, you can set required fields so you can make your colleagues add that information in. It's a balance though as well, because you don't want to make it difficult for them so that they end up forcing bad information into the system. You just got to find that balance with it. But you can do that there. The next one along is public. Now we're going to come onto the public map for publishing this information to the web, to the world. But Parish Online is an internal management system for your parish. And you might have things in here like the contractor's phone number, how much it costs you, You had to pay for it twice because they didn't do it properly the first time round. You know, notes in there that you might not necessarily want to publish to the web, to the public. So you can decide what is published to the public here. All of these by default are switched off, which is a kind of protection level to stop you from accidentally publishing something you don't want to publish. You know, this could have a phone number field, for example, which is really useful for you internally, but obviously not for the public. So we're going to say what we want to be shared to the public. And I think date, description, and status would be good for that. And then I can't remember who it was, but someone asked this morning about whether you can create hyperlinks for your own data. You know, I showed you the listed buildings one that was generated already. This is where you can create your own ones. Now, this isn't a very good example of a layer, but one of these could be called hyperlink, and you could have pasted in loads of URLs for different planning applications. Or one really good example I've seen is a parish has created a layer where they've marked out all of their football pitches, and they've got individual booking form links for each one of those fields. So you can go and book a particular field, and then it goes off to their external booking management system. That's a really nice idea, I thought. But for that, you would need to be able to have a nice hyperlink rather than having to select the link and paste it in themselves. So if, let's say, for example, this one is a hyperlink already, it's just a pasted URL, then you can just tick that and it will become a hyperlink. But you'll see this little 3 blobs button here. There is a configuration for how you can make this dynamic. So, for example, if I don't know. And then the search query was something. If your search field was this, you can say, I want it to search on the description. And by doing that, you're creating a dynamic hyperlink. So it's not fixed for every layer. It's not manually entered by you. It's generated by one of your fields. So in the example of the booking form system, this could be the website, your booking form website, and this could be the number of your football pitch, or whatever it is, some identifier. So it's quite a complex thing. You can add multiple ones onto here. You can do some really complex things. Again, we designed this for local authorities doing some quite big integrations, but it's there for you to use as well, and you might find some good use for that. What you can do is here as well is override what's shown as the hyperlink. So it might show the whole hyperlink, or you might be able to just put something like click here to book, and it will go and it will say that instead. You know, so the hyperlink is the actual link behind, but the text to click is that. So yes, you've got some configuration there to play around with. And get rid of that one because that's nonsense. And then just save those changes. Okay, so that's changing the title, the description, and the configuration of the layer. But if we wanted to add more fields into this, we actually go back into fully edit the layer. So at the top here, you've got add a new layer. You know, we can add layer like we did in the morning session from the map view, going by create and add new layer, or we can do it from here. It's exactly the same. We can edit and we can delete a layer. Just a note on deleting a layer, it is permanent. It warns you, are you sure you want to delete? And we make you type the word delete before you delete a layer, just to give you that time to consider your choices. But that is permanent. We have rolling backups of the system, but that's for the whole system. So we can't go and pick out individual bits that have been deleted individually. So yeah, just be careful with that. We get asked sometimes on storage. Don't worry about storage. It's fine. It's all part of Parish Online. You can upload attachments. You can upload as much data as you like into this, save as much data as you like into this. Don't worry about storage. But let's go into edit And this brings up a view a little bit like what we had in the morning session, where you can go and change the structure of this. So let's go and add some more in here. So it could be a hyperlink thing. And we could maybe have another one. Whatever. That could be a yes, no. There we go. But whatever we do in here, we can go and add some extra information to it. Click save. Be patient with that button, because again, it goes off to the server, changes the database for that layer, and then goes and makes some changes and brings it back to you. So it will swirl for a good few seconds, but it will do it.
Chris, could I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
With your example of the hazardous material, you had a yes/no option. I can't quite see what else that could be. Is it always just yes/no, or are there different sizes? Or I can't.
It's really up to you what you want to put in there. That was just an example. I've seen other parishes have whether a fly tipping incident had asbestos in it, and so that was just a little yes or no answer to it. But I'll come into how that affects the editing of your layer later. Actually, I'll do that in a sec. But yeah, adding these into here allows you to just control what information is put in.
But sorry, so the option to respond is only ever yes or no, irrespective of what it is, or are there other functions you could have in that?
No, so you could have a type, and then you can put in it was household waste, or it was a car.
Oh, I see. So you add as many different options as you want to provide for the reporter, if you like.
Whatever you like, yes.
Okay.
So it's providing you a little bit of structure. A really good reason for it is, earlier on, I was changing the status of those fly tipping incidents, and it changed the color. If someone manually typed in approved, but they typed in approved, misspelt it, it's not going to pick up in the styling, and it's not going to show it as a green icon. So by doing it this way with a drop down, because what we're doing here is generating a drop down, it means that there's no chance of someone misspelling the word household.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'll finish putting this one in anyway. Yeah, so this is your ability to structure the layer. You might see in the asset register layer as well, where we've got category, where we've got quite a few of them there. Let's just let that load, do its thing. And let's just quickly go back into the map view, which is that little globe icon. And we've got our fly tipping layer. And if I add a feature, you can now see that the date and the status are required fields. The description is still free text. The status is one of those three. And now we've got the hazardous material, yes or no, type, whatever it was. Now, because I've got an admin account, then I can actually add new allowed values in at this point, whereas other editors will just have these three drop-down options. So it means you can still control it a bit better from this stage. And then save that. So yeah, that's just adding to the layer and showing stuff on the left-hand side. Okay. So that's configuring layers. I mean, is there anything else you want me to cover on that? I appreciate it's quite a few different options in there, so it could be quite awkward, but at least you've got some options there for changing the layer how you like. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go back to the mapping, but just to show that little button there is to take you back to the mapping side of it. Now I'm going to do some styling, and I'm going to use some layers I've already got. So you have to bear with me on that. But let's carry on using this this fly tipping layer to start off with. You can see we've got conditional styling on here now, so they are changing color depending on what status they have. That is defined in the styling tool because it's class-based, based on the status. We could change that to be based on the type or hazardous material, yes or no, whatever we like. One of the questions in the morning session was adding labels to it. That's just done here. So it's got all of the options that we have as the standard columns that we created. And then it's also got extra ones here. And actually, I did say that the area was in there as well, but it's not showing on there, and it should. So remember that. I'm going to go and fix that. So we have some automatically generated ones as well. So we could put in the date, for example, and then that will show the date alongside the point. You can change the labeling for each individual one of these. But let's just set, what I like to do is just set it up on one. So I'm going to say I want the date to sit in the middle and underneath the points. I want the text to be 18 points. Let's choose some different fonts and different color. And then what I can do is, instead of changing it for each individual one, I can just use this little copy button here. Appreciate it is really subtle and it probably should be a bit more obvious. But if you do that, then it copies all of these layer styles into each individual one. Now, the reason we have them as like individually configurable is because then I can make them different colors for different status, which you might argue is a bit silly. And yes, it is, but there are some uses for it. Okay, so that gives us styling. Let's go and let's have a look at that label. Let's just save that. And there you go. So you see it's got the dates coming up below there now. Now, the other thing about this is, as I zoom out, the dates and things all start to merge together and it can get quite cluttered. And they sort of disappear as they start to overlap each other. So you end up with just one date and it looks a bit weird. So when it comes to styling up your layer, you can do a few little tweaks to make it a little bit more usable and nice. So if I go back into styling here, you can set a minimum and a maximum label scale. So this is a little bit trial and error, but if you say, right, let's set it to 1 to 500 minimum scale and then 1 to 5,000 maximum scale. This means that if I zoom in further than 1 to 500, it will turn the labels off. And then it will show them. And then if I zoom further out than 1 to 5,000 scale, it will turn them off again. Let's save that. Okay, so as I zoom in, I've gone beyond 1 to 500 scale and it turns off. Switches them back on. Then as I zoom out, it's turned them off again. So this might be quite good specifically for neighborhood plan layers where you've got quite a lot of labels going on and you can just tweak them so that the map view is actually nice, a bit tidier. And you can tweak that. Okay, a point layer has seemingly circle, square, triangle, diamond, cross. Not very exciting styling. We have graphical icons in here as well, though. So if I click on the symbol, I've actually got a drop down to go into icon. And I can click on this one here, and it will bring up a graphical icon menu. Now, some people miss that because, admittedly, it's a bit of a silly place. It's not immediately obvious that you can do that. So I suppose that's why we have training. That's how you get to it. I will do it again. But from here, you can go and search for whatever you like. Find a relevant icon. You can change its size to make it bigger. And let's just see the implications of that. So you can see the others have stayed as symbols, and these have now got graphical icons. So there's loads of those, and you can start making more intuitive maps using those icon styles. Let me just quickly show you where that is again. So some of these are symbols, and you can still change these as symbols, but switch that over to icon. And then you click that, wait a few seconds because it goes and calls all of those icons. Choose one, and then you can add it onto the map. I'm not going to save that because that's silly. I'm just going to cancel that there. Oh, question on, can we add our own icons? You can't upload icons directly into Parish Online, but because we need to do some optimization on them as we go, it's not quite a simple process. But if you've got ones that you think we're missing, and I'm sure there are, let us know, and we can then go and source ones that are either copyright free, or we buy icons that have the right licensing with them, and we can add them into Parish Online. Yes, more than happy to do that if you can't find something there. Okay, so that's styling of points. Let's go to an area. Which one should I do? Okay, I'm messing up my own layer here, but obviously you take care of your layers. This is just my demo account. If I go to styling for this, let's see what I've got. Okay, so for polygons, you have a slightly different styling view here. You can still do class-based styles as well. But the difference is with this is you've got a pattern style for it. So I can, first of all, change the opacity of the layer and the color of it. That's as normal. I can change the border color. And I can also change the pattern type in the middle. So I could put maybe some diagonal hashing in. Let's set the opacity down to 0 for that. This is all a bit, you know, trial and error as you go to get it right with the size and the width of everything. Wow, you can make some really disgusting looking polygons, but you get the point. You've got a lot of configuration in there to get the style that you want. It doesn't just have to be opaque or transparent colors. You can have these gridding and diagonal grid lines and hashes and all sorts on there as well. This will become particularly important when you start adding more layers in and you go, well, I've already chosen green. Yeah, let's choose something else. So you can have lots of different things in there as well. Okay, another question there. Can we have class-based icons? Yes, so we were covering that just now. That's exactly what we've got with the fly tipping layer here, is these are icons with the different classes. So it's exactly the same concept. Points, lines, and polygon layers can all have class-based styling. So you can have different colors and styles within them based on the information you've drawn in.
This is great, Chris. Andy Smith here. The number of hours I've spent capturing maps and editing and superimposing things onto them. So our street lights, you know, they're all categorized on my map: sodium, LED, wattage, etc. But it's all roll your own, and this is great. You can put it all in here.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and it's, yeah, you're right. You can spend a lot of time on the styling of things. But I mean, if you've got that information built into there, that's just going to serve you so well later on. If you come to upgrade all the lights, or they suddenly decide that a particular type of bulb is dangerous, then you can just pull out the ones you want and off you go. If you like, I can quickly show you a little trick we've got in here, especially if you're doing that kind of, if you want to do like analysis on those streetlights. Let's carry on using this, for example, and in this fly tipping layer, I only want to see on the map the ones that are outstanding. I can do that by clicking on the cog, as I always do, and you've got a filter button down here. If you do that, you can say, I want to filter on the status, and I want to have it where it equals outstanding. And click save, and it'll only show me those icons on the map. That's really good if you want to print out a PDF for someone and you don't want to show them all the other rubbish that you've got in the account, all the other stuff that you've already done, or all the historic ones. You just want to show the ones that are issues now. And you can do that with the filter tool there. I appreciate it's a bit of a tangent from what you're talking about with your streetlights, but it's an example where you'd be able to just highlight the ones that are in we have a particular state. When you filter the layer, it shows you that you're filtering the layer with this little blue icon here. And you can click that to get rid of that filter, and it'll take you back to seeing the whole data. So just to repeat that, in case you missed it, click on the cog for the layer, go to filter. I'm going to say I want to filter on status. And you could also, if you've got a slightly more complex data set, you can say where it contains something. Then it can search within all of a layer and find you all those values that meet that criteria. So it's quite capable there to bring out the filters. Also, if you are dealing with a contractor, you want to tell them to go and sort this out, and you don't want them to confuse them with this. If you've got, I don't know, another contractor doing something else, you can click on that point, show it on the left-hand side, and you've got a filter button there as well. If you click that, it hides all the other objects apart from that one. And I can take that even further because I can click on one, I can hold down Control on my keyboard and select the ones I want to filter on, click filter, and it will just show me those three. So you've got filtering based on a structure of the data, you know, where it meets a condition, and you've just got simple brute force, show me these three on the map. So that is really good. Parishes use that quite a bit when they're dealing with grass cutting contractors or just neighborhood plans where they just want to say, right, look at this bit and nothing else. And they can hide everything else. Okay. Yeah, I didn't intend to go into filtering, but it's useful to show you you've got it. Right, the next thing I want to show you is data extract. Now, remember in the morning session, I showed talking about the address points and how Faversham Town Council used it to export addresses for their mail shots. Let's do that. So let's say, for example, what I'm going to do is introduce you to the annotate tool. I don't normally like showing this because it's not something you should use as a drawing tool. The annotate tool is there to literally doodle on the map. It's not visible to anyone else. It's only visible to you, but you can use this for certain features like data extract. So let's add a new object onto the map. Again, I'm going to do this quite briefly. I'm not going to get bogged down in this. We have a knowledge base article for this with a tutorial to show you how to use it, but just to show you that it exists. Let's use a circle reference here. I'm going to say that I want to email everyone within 100-meter radius of that position. Let's just change the styling slightly for that. So we have individual styling here because it's not a structured part of the map database. It's just a doodle. Let's close that. Now I've got a doodle on the map that I can toggle on and off. Actually, you can see some of the, here's ones I made earlier as well. So I've got a shape on the map. If I click it here, I get the normal stuff, edit, delete, filter, la la la. There's also a drop down here where I can click data extract. It brings up this panel and it says, okay, you've told me the sort of cookie cutter area that you want to extract from, but what do you want to extract? And you go and tell it. So you go and choose a layer. And let's just click run. And it comes back with the 19 addresses that it's found within that circle. All of the postal addresses, all the other gump that it comes with, including its residential status, la la la. You could export that to a CSV file straight away. Or what you can do is you can filter down even more. You can either bash this around in Excel if you wanted to do filtering in there, but you can also do it here as well. So let's say, this has got a really funny name, BLPU classification. But basically, it's telling you whether it's residential or commercial and whether they're detached properties or semi-detached. Let's say I only want to find the records that include the word residential. And to use a bit of a wild card, because they don't just say residential, they've got detached and commas and things in front of them. I can use the little percentage signs for that at the front and the back. So it will find anything with the word residential in. Let's see what that does to the data. So let's run it again. Okay, and it's stripped out 2 records. It's only found 17 now. But that's just a quick little thing, more efficient as an extract. I could do that for commercial properties as well. Let's export that. And it'll download it as a CSV file there. There we go. So I could go off to a marketing company who are doing your mail shots, or a printing company, or whatever it is. Got all your, or you could run it through Word and do your mail merge. You've got all those records there. Now this tool is pretty capable, because what I've just done there is a really small example. It's only found like 17 records. It doesn't have to be based on something that I've drawn on the map. It could be something that already exists on the map. Let's say, for example, the parish boundary. So if I click on the parish boundary, I can go to exactly the same menu item and run exactly the same search. Let's run that. And this time it's brought back 2,401 records. And you're, okay, we've spent a lot of time on this. You'll notice how fast it does it. So it will bring back tens of thousands of records in just a few seconds. There's a lot of database malarkey going on behind the scenes. But this is really good for you if you wanted to do big analysis on your parish council, looking at population estimates, looking at your split of residential and commercial, consultations, mail merges, whatever it is, you can use this data. Do remember that when you extract this information, it will still carry copyright for the information you've exported. So these address databases can't just then be published to the web, because they are copyrighted and part of your license. So just do be careful, but running them for mail merges and things is completely part of your parish business. So it's absolutely fine.
Chris, do they get updated to reflect the electoral roll on a 6 monthly basis, or what?
So these aren't people, these are properties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so these are only representing a property. So it doesn't, which is why I said estimate rather than actual population. Yeah, they just represent a building that's got an address to it. But this data set is updated every 6 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we keep a regular update of that from all the local authorities. So we'll notice in areas where there's new housing developments that pop up, you'll get those addresses pretty soon. And sometimes, depending on the difference between the update regime, you'll sometimes get properties that are popping up or addresses that are popping up even before the Ordnance Survey mapping takes hold. Although in this case, it's the other way around. But yes, as the new properties come up, you'll get all this data. It really depends on how the local authority manage it. Yeah, so you can do this on big areas. So exporting addresses, you could even use it to export your own information. So exporting all of your outdoor property, for example, you could do that from here. Although you could just do that from the table view instead, because that also has an export. Yeah, there's two ways of doing it. So the data extract is a geographic export, and the table view is just a standard give me the data export. Give you one other example. This is based on a real example. A parish was doing a consultation on putting in low traffic neighborhood areas. So they wanted to reduce cars flying through areas. So they were going to put in bollards and planters to reduce traffic speeds and improve walking and cycling. But they wanted to do a consultation on it first. So they drew out an area that showed all of the addresses that they thought would want to be part of that consultation, and then extracted those, and then they did a consultation to those, so the people who would be affected by a particular scheme. And that was really successful because it got engagement from all the local residents first, and then it was put in, and then the acceptance was there for it because they go, oh yeah, I had a say in that, and then it was there. And the only people who complain about it were the people who were coming from Birmingham and then flying through it at great speed. So it was a really good way of getting people on side through these kind of geographic consultations. Just pick up a few questions. If you have someone in the village who is into mapping but not part of the parish council, is it acceptable to give him/her access for the editing? If you are giving them access as a volunteer role so that they are doing work on your behalf, parish business, that's absolutely fine. If you're giving it to them because they like maps, that's not acceptable. That's not a good excuse. Yeah, just think about the use case of it. If they're using it, if they're helping you out with something, that's great. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. They know the limitations of why they should be using the software. Any maps that you produce and export do have a kind of watermark to them. So when they get exported or a PDF created, it's got a kind of behind the scenes watermark to it. So if it gets picked up in a random place and is used for a different purpose, it'll be obvious where the source is, and it's in the end your responsibility. So if you can stand up in court and say, no, I gave them access quite rightly because they were doing this, and you can argue it competently, then great. If not, then maybe have a think about it. Do drop us an email if you're not sure. If there's a kind of grey area that you think, then we're happy to advise on that, because we have to deal with all the Ordnance Survey licensing all the time. So that's usually the big kicker of one. Okay. And Steph said, could you please show in your demonstrations how the tool could be used for emergency resilience or emergency preparedness? Yeah, really good example. That's happening quite a lot now. Glad you brought that up. The first thing that parishes have been doing for this is plotting where they have assets that would be used in emergency planning. So whether it's a school hall, whether it's equipment, whether it's the location of vulnerable people. Now that is a contentious thing to be able to add, but actually within the realms of your private Parish Online account, there's no reason why you can't add that in. And in fact was added during lockdown 1 to help vulnerable people, making sure they were getting food deliveries and getting health and wellbeing support. So you can add that in terms of vulnerable people as well. That's the data input side of it. And then the thing I'd add in after that are some of the emergency elements that could happen. So I could switch on things like flooding risk from rivers and seas. Let's go to an area that actually does flood, basically the centre of Basingstoke. So adding things in like this. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting into the analysis and the preparedness element of it. And all of a sudden I might go, oh, right, so where we keep all of the stuff that we use is all likely to be flooded anyway. So why are we storing it there? Let's maybe move it. The silly things like that that do come up and are really good as part of your plans. The other thing is, if you're plotting things onto the Parish Online, producing a really nice output map is a really good thing that you can then save to a computer, save to cloud storage, just have in Parish Online, all is available, or physically print to physical printers, because you know local authorities do that as well. They have to do every year, they do their resilience plans. They use the Big Brother version of Parish Online in local authorities to plot out big maps that then sit in the office somewhere so they can pick them up when all the power's out, all the internet's out, everything's dark, and they've got actual maps that they can use that have come from Parish Online. So I think, what are the things that are going to go wrong and what layers of information could you add in? How can you do some initial analysis to make sure that what you're doing isn't silly, isn't in the wrong area, and making sure that you've got maps of where the things you need to protect are. Hopefully that doesn't answer the question directly, but hopefully it gives you some inspiration towards it anyway. I haven't done a full resilience plan myself. I should go and sit with a local authority and do one day. But there's lots of information in here like that that might help. The surface water layers are really interesting. We added these in a few weeks ago, and so you've got flooding from rivers and seas, but you've got flooding from surface water as well now. And they've got these within 3.3%, 1% and 0.1% chance. So we can add these in, and they are at different zoom levels. If you notice you turn on a layer and it comes up with a little magnifying glass instead, it's because we've had to put a zoom limitation on a layer, because it's either not appropriate to see at that level, or there's too much data and it would just give you a mass of data. So that's the case in these surface water layers, because Environment Agency gave us a limitation to say you're not allowed to show it beyond this zoom level. Fair enough. So you can turn these layers on, and then again that gives you an indication of where things might be affected by surface water. So if you have, again, in emergency resilience, you're looking at, okay, well, the first responder is here, and here are some potential events. Are they going to be able to get to those locations? Are these roads going to flood really badly in a particular event? Is there an alternative? Does the resource need to be on the other side of the whatever? You know, those kind of simple things. You can just, the inspiration can run wild with the mapping. And it really helps when you've got groups together who can talk about these things together and go, well, look, here's the state of play. That's, you know, here's what it is. That's what the data is showing us. What can we do about it? Hopefully that's a bit of inspiration. Okay, let's go on to, I'm going to go on to the public map now. So we've got our new fantastic fly tipping layer that we want to publish to the web. Now, whether you want to publish fly tipping incidents, I don't know, but think about your own examples. Once you've put in information like your assets or even your draft neighbourhood plan information, do you want to be able to share that to the public? We have examples where parishes just share a public map of their parish boundary, because it helps when it comes to people complaining to the parish. You go, well, actually, this is our area. You need to be moaning to next door, thanks. That's quite good to do. But in this example, I want to share our fly tipping incidents. So to do that, I'm going to go into the admin panel. Let that load up. And let's go to public maps. Now, again, I've done some before, but you'll end up with nothing here if you haven't created one before. And I'm just going to click add. Now, this is a workflow that's going to end up with some iframe code that allow you to plonk that into your website and it'll create an interactive map. It's basically going to be a really simplistic version of Parish Online that any member of the public can go onto your website and look around. So I'm just going to think about what I want to show the public, because in Parish Online you can change layers around all day, but here we're kind of defining what the parish can see, what a member of the public can see. So I'm going to use detailed mapping because I want to be able to show a detailed view. Which of my layers do I want to share? And that was the fly tipping one. I could add more if I want to. Which of the standard layers do I want to see? These are all the ones that are provided to us. Let's add the parish boundary in. I'll just leave it like that for now. Click next. Set a start locations. This is where we want the map to default to when we start it up. I'm just going to do it for there for now. And then let's give it a title. So this is our now we've got some options. Do you want the public to be able to switch the layers on and off as you do in Parish Online? In this example, no, we've only got a few layers. Let's just leave it as it is. Do you want them to be able to query the layer? So click on a point line or polygon and bring up the information on the left-hand side. Remembering that we've set previously which columns of information we want to be public. So I can do that confidently because I've already set that up. Do I want to give them a postcode search? They could search their local area, see what fly tipping's in the area. Yes, okay, why not? And what do I want to be switched on by default? Well, let's leave those two switched on. Let's click save. Okay, and that has done it. So what it generates is a URL. So you could either send that to someone directly, or you've got iframe code, which is code that goes into a website that will generate that public map view. It's all quite difficult to comprehend though from here. So we've got a little preview button to show you what it will look like. So let's switch over into that. And there we go. You can see I've loaded it up in a relatively stupid place. I don't have a layer control. I've got my postcode search. I can zoom in and out, and I can click on one of these objects and see the information about it, only showing me the information that I said I wanted published. And from there, you can either give this code to your web team and they will be able to load it up. Web team sounds quite grandiose. It's probably just one of your colleagues who can work the website. They'll know how an iframe works. You can also, as an alternative, just send this as a link. If you send this someone an email as a link, it will open up as a full screen page of exactly the same thing. So examples of this are where you'd have it embedded within a website and just showing you a particular thing. I'll show you an example of how a local authority has actually used it. So local authority, they've got the layer control on and they've created a public map showing where all their tree preservation orders are. So this means that any tree surgeon can go onto this page and make sure they're not cutting anything down that they shouldn't do. So publicly available, constantly updated. So if I go and change any of the fly tipping data in Parish Online, it will immediately reflect it in this view here as well. So you don't have to go keep changing stuff on the website. It'll just always keep it up to date. So that's the concept behind a public map. It means that you can create lots of different location things for it. It could be a neighborhood plan. It could be a particular event. You could create a layer that shows where the event is, where the car parking is, where nearest train station is, all that kind of stuff. Or it could be particular incidents or assets. Use it for whatever you like to publish. And again, we'd love to get some feedback on how you do use this. But yeah, it's there to put the information out without having to screenshot it or PDF it as a static map. You can give people something engaging to go and look at. And general feedback from this has been really good because you're then proactively sharing information to your residents and they really appreciate that. Okay. Just quick questions quickly. Steph, yeah, okay, cheers, Steph. I might need a crib sheet. Yeah, well, we're recording this session, so you could always skip through or play me at double speed until you get to the bit that's interesting. Yes, and we've got the knowledge base, which has step-by-step guides as well. There's lots of little question marks and bit at any point that will take you through to our knowledge base. So you've got lots of things in here. Bearing in mind, our knowledge base is going to change in the next few weeks, but it'll all be the same stuff, just it'll look slightly different. So things like how to use the print tool, and then we've got a little video on that, and then a step-by-step guide, and then as frequently asked questions. And again, this is changing, but we've got this kind of, did you find this helpful, yes or no? Do use that. Don't be afraid to put no, because then it gives you the opportunity to say, we didn't explain this, or haven't got a clue what you're on about. That will send us an email as a notification, and we'll be able to reply to you and at least improve it as well. So we're more than happy to do that. Don't be offended to dislike our... We won't be offended much. Okay. And other questions. Can you amend the date format? We've set the date format in a particular way so that it is sort of a database compliant format. And at the moment it's year, month, day. We are looking at a way to change that so you can flip it around or show it as, February instead of 02, but not at the moment. So if you wanted the date to show in a particular format, then you might just have to use a text format and then type it in as you would want it, but it means you wouldn't get that date drop down. So that's the option at the moment. Could this be used for a village fete? Yes, perfect. You could even you could show where the event is. You could even put out the individual stalls. If you were selling your event stall places, you could colour them up depending on whether they've been filled or not. And then when the event comes round, you could have a public map, so you could show the public which exhibitor or which event or which thing is in each section. That'd be quite nice. Where all the standard facilities are. You could even use it as part of your management and due diligence work, where you could put where the fire escapes are and where the fire engine would go and where the toilet facilities are. Yes, you can do all that. Too many people use this for cemeteries. Not sure if you answered this. It's used a bit by cemeteries. Yes, we've probably got 15, 20 parishes who use it for cemeteries. Most of them have migrated data from Pair Technology or some other system into Parish Online. If you've already got a system like that, ask them for an export of it that's compatible with Parish Online. They'll know what you mean because we've done it before. And then we'll be able to update it. You'll need to send us that information, usually by email, and then we'll add anything else, add it all in. And then you can use it. If we pay for Parish Online, is there any extra costs, for example, if we try to map out our cemeteries? No. We charge you for a subscription on an annual basis. It's all you can eat. It's all the functionality we can give you. You can use it at midnight. You can use it all day, all night, whatever you like. Number of users you're allowed, just go and use it. we will add extra functionality as we can. We don't do kind of consultancy on Parish Online just because of the sheer number of users that we've got now. But we do have training providers that can help with training, and for little jobs here and there that it seems like there's no thing for it in Parish Online, again, just email us and we might be able to help you with that. We're usually pretty good with our emailing. Usually within half a day, we'll get you a response back. Bearing in mind, it comes down to me and Olivia, and at the moment, no one's looking at it because Olivia's off and I'm here, but you know. Our records are manual for the cemetery on our spreadsheets. So what you'd need is you would need the geography, you'd need the geometry elements for each cemetery plot, and that will come as a map format, hopefully with an ID associated with each one of those plots. Then separately, you would have a spreadsheet which has got the same ID and then all the information about them. And then what we would do is we would merge them together and load them into Parish Online. And that would be the process. That's what we did for Hook and a few others. And then you're away. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to start doing it manually yourself and drawing out the plots. But it's very tedious. Don't do that. Hopefully that answers that question. Okay, there's two other things I want to show you. And then if I get any other time, then we'll do Q&A. And then I'll keep picking up other things that we can do. Right, so the next thing I want to show you is kind of just for your information. Parish Online is in this web browser, so that you don't download anything, it's just accessed through a web browser, which means that you can log into Parish Online on your phone. When you do that, let me just sort my screens out. When you do that, you'll end up with a view that looks a little bit like this. So imagine my web browser is now my mobile phone. What you can do is make it behave a little bit like Google Maps on your phone. So you can click this little button down here and enable geolocation. If you do that, it will center you on your GPS position of your phone. Now, this is a terrible demo because I'm doing it on my computer and my computer doesn't know where the hell I am. So you'll just have to ignore that. I'm not in the middle of a field in Reading. So it's not going to work on your desktop computer. But when you're on your phone, it will give you this little moving blob and it will allow you to see where you are on the map. What you can do then is open up this panel at the bottom and you'll recognize this. This is exactly the same as in the normal desktop mode. And you can go and add features, type in the information, click on the map, which will just be clicking on your screen, and then saving the information from there. So as long as you've got an internet connection on your phone or your tablet, then you can use Parish Online there as well. And hopefully that will help you out as you're going along. You can also use it to add attachments. So in here, when I add attachments, it will go to my file explorer on my computer. But on your phone, depending on how your phone works, there's billions of different options. It should give you an option to use your documents, your gallery, or your camera. So you can choose camera, take a picture of something as you are, and it will load it up as an attachment onto that object straight away. Now, this isn't the perfect user interface for that. This is our kind of beta version of it, but we are making improvements to it, and that'll improve over time. But it is possible to do that now. So do go and have a play with that. There is a video of me walking around my local park doing it. If you can bear listening to me again, then go and have a look at that, and it will just give you a brief overview of what I mean in a slightly better view. But I'm sure you've had enough of me today. Save that for another day. And yeah, so that's the mobile editing. That's something that we're trying to improve a lot of, is how it works on a tablet and a mobile. And someone will probably ask, does it work offline if you've got no internet connection? No, not at the moment. We haven't got that far yet. This is an interesting point to talk about Parish Online's software development itself. We rely on feedback from you as users to what we put into this software. We're designing this entire piece of software for the different tiers of government. So parish councils all the way up to central government. And those are pretty much our sole customer base. So everything you ask for is going, and that we go, oh yeah, that's a good idea, we build it, is going to benefit you and 1,700 other parish councils and all the local authorities as well. So don't be afraid to ask for stuff if you think it's useful. Do give us a bit of context for why you would like to use it, what you're doing, and why you think you need it. That'd be really helpful, and we really appreciate that kind of feedback. The last thing I want to show you is we are working on quite a few new energy performance layers. So we're looking at bringing in energy performance certificates, some climate data, basically things to help people who have declared climate emergencies and want to analyze their local area to see what we can improve in the local area. Because if we are going to do anything, it has to start local, really. So we think if we can make sure our software is working in that respect, then that'd be good. One tool that we haven't launched yet officially, but is in the software, is our isochrone tool. What the hell is an isochrone? You know, ISO bars in a weather chart, they have equal levels of pressure and create these bands as you go around. An isochrone is an equal amount of time. That still hasn't explained it. Basically, if you are wanting to work out how far someone could walk or cycle from the center of the village, from the duck pond here, what you could do is draw a concentric circle out, and you say, well, that's the kind of as far as you can get. And you might have seen that in London and in city centres where you have those big monoliths and they've got a map and it says from here you can get 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Yeah, and that's fine, but that doesn't take into account any of the actual infrastructure in the area. So we've created this isochrone tool that works out how far you can walk, cycle or drive based on the infrastructure, based on the built environment. So let me just explain it by doing it. So let's click on isochrone here, which is under the tools. I'm going to say I want to see how far I can cycle. And then I'm going to have 3 isochrones generated. I'm going to have a 5, 15 and 30-minute one. You can change these numbers if you like. And then just simply click in the middle where you want to start. And it goes and generates this map. So it shows that I could cycle from the centre of Oakley to the edge of Basingstoke in half an hour based on the infrastructure. And you can see they're not just concentric circles, they're actually guided by the roads and the cycle networks and the path network for it. Once I've done that initial point, I could switch it. I could switch it to walking, or I could switch it to driving. And so the point here is that we could take a moment in time and go, well, at the moment, you can cycle a certain amount of distance. Can we improve that? Can we make a 15-minute walkable city? You know, those kind of things are getting more important. Can we prioritize walking and cycling in an area? And so this is, at the moment, we haven't really finessed this to what we want it to be in the end, but it's a really good starting talking point, I think. So yeah, do go and have a play with it and see what it comes up with in your area. We'd love some feedback on it, of why you think it'd be useful, and see where we get with it. But that's a new tool that we've added in the last week or so that we think would be really useful. But yes, you can tweak all these numbers and all of this. So let's put it back to driving. You can see how it takes into account the M3 here. So you can get from the centre of Oakley all the way out to Windlesham on the M3. Any immediate comments on that? Without swear words? No, it's obviously so amazing. People don't even want to talk about it. It's fine. But yeah, do go and have a play with it in your own time and see what you think about it, and do drop us some feedback if you can on it. It'd be really appreciate that. Once you've drawn them, let's do the walking one. So we've got how far you could walk. You can actually save this to a layer. So we've got a pre-built layer in Parish Online for you. So I can select a layer, and there is one called Isochrone Travel Time. If I select that and select the time column, I'll just leave it at that. Click save. That will then save it to a layer, and I can close that tool, and that isochrone will still be there in that looks slightly different, but that's just the styling for it. So that means you can then use that. You can then use these for a data extract if you wanted to. You know, you could get all the addresses for people who could walk within 10 minutes to the centre of town. So everything I've shown you today has been quite functional stuff. It's just been how you use the software. What I don't really go into is why you should use the software. And really that's because you all have such different uses. Okay, you've all got common uses, but you've all got particular priorities at different times of the year. So if I can just cover over the functions, then you can go, good, I can use that for that, or I can use that for that. That's the idea anyway. But yes, do go and use these things. You can't really break Parish Online. You can only just reconfigure it. And if you find that you've slightly reconfigured it and it's not working how you think it should, again, just drop us an email. We can take a look at your account. We can kind of remote into your account without affecting you, without having to log into your computer. We can check your account out to make sure it's all working right and help you out from the comfort of our own home, and get you using the software. Right, we've got 10 minutes left that we can either leave for just idle chat or questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But yes, thank you for, oh, good, still lots of people here. Thank you for sticking around. Lydia.
Hi, I just wondered if we were to go ahead and use everything and then in a couple of years' time decide to move on.
Sorry, could you just repeat that again? I can't hear you very well.
Sorry, if we were to put lots of stuff on Parish Online and use it for a few years and then in a few years decide to move on, what happens to the data?
We can, if you decide to leave us, then we can export the data in, well, you can export the data in the table formats yourself at any time. But if you want it in a particular mapping format, so if you wanted to go and use it in a different piece of mapping software, we will export your data in a compatible format that's not proprietary or going to cost you anything. It's in a common format to go and use it in something else. Yeah. If you just don't pay your bill and disappear, then the account lapses. Your data stays in the account in case it was just a mistake. And it stays there for, it's between 3 and 4 months. It will stay in the account, and then eventually it will get tidied and archived and cleaned. But we're not particularly harsh on that because we know there's people going, oh crap, I didn't pay my bill, didn't mean to, and we haven't immediately deleted all your data. We're not that mean. So yes, we don't lock you into the software as such. If you want to use it in a different mapping application, that's great because you're using mapping. That's what we're here for. But yes, we don't have it in any particularly weird format. It's just in a mapping format that we can work with. Please don't leave us though. Question from Jane: when will the recordings be available? Not sure actually. So this will save to the Welk Zoom account, and so it'll be up to Alison and Claudine to work that out. I'm not sure, but we'll send the PowerPoint stack over as soon as we finish the session, and so it's whenever the Welk guys will be able to get that over to you. Any other questions, Martin?
Yes, Chris. I mean, is it just you and Olivia doing all this? I mean, it seems like it's a big project, and what's the team behind it? I guess just a bit more background context.
Yeah, sure. So as a company, we actually spun off from another mapping company back in 2016, where we kind of got too annoying, and so with their blessing, we went off into our own company. There are 7 of us, so we're still not a big team, but enough to get a lot done. So there's myself and Olivia do most of the support for Parish Online, and then the rest of the team are software and data development. And so we are mostly focused on UK local government. So we're not going off to do stuff in New Zealand and things. We focus on this sector and build the software for it. We sell it to town and parish councils. We typically don't make enough money. If we just sold to parish councils, we wouldn't make enough money to keep it a viable business. So we sell it to local authorities where we can increase the price and make a bit more from it. But we're selling essentially the same core software for it. And we do sell it to businesses as well. And we sell that for a little bit more again. So our primary focus and desire to get working is UK local government, but we subsidise it from other areas to make sure that we can sell it for 30 quid a year, which does sound a bit silly. But yeah, we really enjoy that. So yeah, the product has been going since 2009. And then yeah, in 2016, I spun it off into its own company. So I'm the managing director of it, and there's 2 other directors who have been with me since day one, and then the rest of the team who work on software and development. So I'm based in Basingstoke. We have a database expert based in Buxton. The rest of them are one chap in Swindon, but we're mostly around Basingstoke area.
It's very impressive. No, it really is.
Thanks. I mean, it's enjoyable as a job. I get to work on really interesting things, build new software. The software we built from the ground up ourselves. So it's our baby. And, you know, we don't have to send any of our subscription revenue off to other businesses or, you know, anything like that. It's we can invest it back into the software. So that makes it really rewarding. Yeah, and getting the case studies and feedback from you on it is really good as well.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Andy.
Yeah, so I can see us using this and actually putting a lot of data that we've currently got in other places into it, which makes me think, if we start depending on you, what's your backup and recovery regime like?
If they're really, really bad issues, you won't hear from us at all. We'll just run away. No, so our support is we typically can reply to you within half a day. Olivia and I, between us, we can normally do it a lot better than that. Our software and infrastructure is backed up on a nightly basis. That in turn has a 7-day week backup, which is then backed up again. And then we have annual backups as well. And all of those are stored on the original infrastructure, and we have it backed up on different infrastructure as well. So it's nightly backups, essentially backed up over a year twice.
So if you have a disaster, the most we're likely to use is a day's editing.
Correct. But even then, it wouldn't be that bad.
Okay.
We get asked, what happens if you go bust? Questions. In which case, the way we have to do our accounting is if you pay us 100 quid a year, we get that in kind of monthly chunks, and we have to reserve the rest of it for the rest of the year, so that we have a fund available to deal with the close down of the business. And that would be getting you all of your data in compatible formats that you can go and use in something else, or at least run out the subscription contract so that we can keep all the servers up and running for that. But again, it hasn't happened, and I hope I'm a good enough businessman to make sure it doesn't happen. But yeah, the main thing that could happen, the most probable thing that could happen is we host Parish Online and a lot of the data on Amazon Web Services, called AWS for short. The most probable thing that will happen is one of those data centers goes down. The accessibility of that data center goes down. We have a backup for that means it can fail over to a different hosting provider, but that would take, we don't have the kind of instant stuff because that costs hundreds and thousands of pounds to maintain, and we can't afford that. But it would probably take half a day to spin up on another piece of infrastructure. Yeah, all the disaster management stuff is good fun, but that's the most probable thing that would happen.
Okay, thanks.
But I mean, we keep a log of our downtime, and we're really honest with it, and we typically have 10 minutes of our fault downtime a year, on average, and we're trying to reduce that because it's still really stressful. But yeah, I've told you all the bad things about cloud services now, so hopefully I'll just put your mind at rest that actually as a cloud service it's more reliable than a spreadsheet sat on your computer, because one day you might not be able to get into your computer for whatever reason. It's more resilient where it is. Yeah. But yeah, I love all the kind of doom mongering questions. Always get them at the end of a session.
That's what 33 years with IBM does to you.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Claudine, you got your hand up. Shall I unmute you? Oh, there we go. Oh, I still can't hear you though. You're unmuted, but I still can't hear you. Can anyone else hear Claudine? Oh, okay. Maybe put it in the chat box. Sorry. Just checking the questions here. Did that one. Yeah, mobile editing. Yeah, yeah. We really want to get that mobile editing working better, but it's should work as it is at the moment. It just relies on the your network connection as you got it. Who can I talk to who has successfully requested county council data? Any parish in West Sussex. But I mean, the best thing for this is start off by going through the normal, general inquiries, saying if you put in keywords like GIS data, then that will almost certainly route to the right person. And then you can say, we're using Parish Online. There's, there are 45, hopefully by the end of the day, slightly more, 45 local authorities using it in the WALC area. We'd like to use some data. Tell them what you want and why you want it, because otherwise they'll just go, well, why? No, can't be bothered. Say we're a public sector organisation, we would like settlement boundaries or conservation areas or whatever, or your local plan for our neighbourhood plan or for our, climate emergency planning or whatever it is. If you can share the data to us through Parish Online, then we'd really appreciate it. Copy our support email address into that, because if they come back going, oh yes, but gobbledygook, what format do you want this in? We can then chip in and then say, well, actually it's this, this and this. It's really easy, just do this. And that will at least grease the wheels for it. We don't want you stuck with it. Yeah, it really works when you've got a good head of people all asking for the same things, because they go, oh right, okay, we should actually do something here. And it turns out to be a really good news story, because the county don't have, or the county or the district don't end up with you bugging them all the time for data, because they can proactively put it on and it's automatically shared down. And they don't have to be scared about the data currency and accuracy, because you can privately privately have a quick word to them and say, well, this is wrong, you could improve this, and it improves the GIS data, which improves decision making, la la la. So hopefully that'll be a good way to approach it. On our website, there is a list of local authorities who have shared data. We've either bullied them into it, or they've been proactive and come to us for it. And since we started doing this software, we've been constantly trying to get local authorities to do this, because we believe that the different tiers of government should be talking together better, if not in person, through data. And having that shared information is just going to make everyone's life a lot easier. That's the cunning plan behind it anyway. But you should be able to ask for anything from the county or district, because you need to clarify, make sure they're aware that they are not making it public. By giving it to us, we are not making it public. We're only sharing it to local councils with valid mapping licenses, PSGA licenses, which some of their data is, has to adhere to. So if you've got that license as well, then they'll be able to share it to you without any problem. Bat some of those hurdles down. Yeah, we're more than happy to help with that as well, because we think it's a good thing to do. Our dirty little secret to this as well is it's a great way for us to start a conversation with the local authority to try to sell them the software as well. That's in our interest as well, because we want them to be able to use that better mapping as well. Thanks, Claudine. That was a good opportunity for a rant. Andy's back in.
Yeah, I have to say I've been hugely impressed by this session, and I find it interesting that you're targeting local authorities who typically haven't got 2 pennies to rub together, and we're all mostly volunteers on this call.
Yeah.
So it's just like-minded, community-minded people helping each other, which is fantastic. But this software has tremendous potential in a commercial setting, and I'm amazed that you're not going after the people with the big bucks.
So, I mean, we try. Our spread of turnover is typically a third parish revenue, a third district revenue, and a third commercial revenue. That's how that's the mix of where we get our money from at the moment. And that's quite a nice balance. Yes, we could go chasing the big money, the big commercial companies, but their needs are going to be different. And all of a sudden we start following the money and building things for them, whereas we could be building things for you. So yes, we could end up with £1 million company, £10 million company, but at the cost of this market or this sector. And I don't think that's right. So, I mean, our strategy has been to prioritise town and parish councils because they do not have access to good mapping information. That's what the software is there for. So if that's the benefit of me being able to buy an Aston Martin, then fine. I got a bike.
Well done.
So, I mean, that sounds very altruistic, but I mean, we do still pick up the commercial customers where we can, and that subsidise our work and increases the work that we're doing. We've bid recently for a bit of government funded money for building extra tools to help local councils when it comes to drone management. Now, this is something that's coming over the hill, where drone law at the moment doesn't really exist, apart from you can fly a drone, but as long as it's nowhere near anyone, or you have to have a very particular license for it, and as long as you can see it. That's going to be changing to the point where there'll be drone deliveries, drone crop spraying, drone air taxis, whatever it is. And we think the local councils and the local authorities need to be involved in that picture to define where that drone usage should be. And so that's a bit of money that we're looking forward to be able to improve Parish Online to help with that as it comes over the hill. So we're looking out for new areas that local authorities might be using the software for as well. So yeah, don't worry, we're making just about enough money to keep going. That's all we need to do.
So yeah, we'll see how we get on as a parish council, but one of my other hats is a volunteer on a heritage steam railway, and I can see loads of uses for this on that, but they haven't got pennies to rub together either. So, but I might come to you with a conversation on that.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we've got a different website called XMap. So we brand Parish Online as Parish Online, but the software as a whole is called XMap. And that's where we would provide commercial licenses for it as well. And we've got the ability to set kind of freebie accounts and charity accounts for that as well. So yes, we do actually have, what are they doing? It wasn't Heritage Railway, something down in Somerset anyway, who are using the XMAP version of the software for it. But yes, you're right. There's lots of those little accounts where Google Maps doesn't cut it, Google Earth doesn't cut it. Something like this would be really helpful. Yeah, no, happy to help with that. I've actually overrun. Okay, fine. Inevitably, you'll think of a question when we hang up, but just drop us an email. Happy to talk to you about that, whatever it is. Just a reminder, take us up on the offer of the free trial. Email me to extend it if you need to align it to your council meetings and decisions. Okay, thank you to Walk for setting this up. Really good in the session, I've enjoyed it. Oh, right, what is our email address? It's on our website, but it's support@parish-online.co.uk. And that'll get through to us, get through to myself and Olivia. What else did I say? Thank you for joining me today. It's been enjoyable. Hope you have a nice weekend. Right, I'll stop recording now.